Clerk states this matter has been set today for the continuance.
That's right, Mr. President. Before we do get started, if I could just lay a few
Please.
rules for virtual participants as well as folks inside the room here. If you will be providing any type of testimony today, whether you are present virtually or here in person, for transcription purposes, we do ask that you will state your first and last name and also spell it, and then your address or parcel number as well. So please just be prepared, and then I will be placing each person that provides that testimony under oath. And so, Commissioners, we also do have Commissioner Tim Bubb from Licking County also on the line here. And so for our first order of business, this matter has been set today for the continuance of the first hearing of the Cold Ditch Joint County Petition, which lays out the plans and specifications for this proposed project. Before we begin with the hearing, we have received a request for dismissal of this matter, which was submitted to this joint board for consideration via email. The board will need to consider the request prior to this proceeding. And there are two options that are laid out here for you before moving forward with this hearing. The first is to move into executive session to discuss the request for dismissal, or to directly allow the engineer's office and counsel for the opposition to address the request for dismissal. And our legal counsel is also happy to weigh in if needed.
All right.
If I may, Commissioners, Janine Hummer on behalf of the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office. My role is not to advocate one position or the other, but merely to advise the board with regard to legal issues that are before you, and to address any of the issues related to the administrative hearing requirements in this quasi-judicial hearing. You have filed before you a request for dismissal of this matter. The request for dismissal goes to whether or not there was sufficient notice. My recommendation to the board is to allow each side to be able to address that before the board, so that you can decide whether or not to move forward with the hearing. And to once again reiterate, this is a first hearing. A vote in favor of proceeding is limited only to moving forward with plans, specifications, and a proposed assessment. You will then have a second hearing, which will be a notice to proceed and allow for those assessments to move forward. So this, again, is a first hearing only to move forward with the plans, specifications, and proposed assessments. No impact will occur other than what I've just stated. I recommend that we allow the engineer's office at least to address the motion, and then allow counsel that filed the motion to proceed.
And Commissioners, I do just want to say, Mr. Shively, if you don't mind turning your camera off at this time so we can have the Commissioners present. When you do speak, each of you, we will ask that your cameras be on at that time. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bob, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, glad to be here.
And we can move forward, allow the engineer's office to address the issue
Absolutely.
related to, or, yep, council can go first as
Yeah,
well.
we have a presentation from the engineer's office. Clerk, can you swear in the folks from the engineer's office?
I think they want to address the motion first, Commissioner, and have counsel for those that are in opposition. And everyone has received that motion, that request.
Counsel, your mic is live whenever you are ready.
All right, go ahead.
Would you like me at the table or the podium?
You're at the table is fine, sir.
Okay, thank you. Brian Hunt, appearing on behalf of the Colts Neck Homeowners Association. We filed a request to dismiss this petition yesterday due to the fact that it's come to our attention several lot owners in the Colts Neck subdivision were not listed as affected property owners and therefore did not receive notice or will be given an opportunity to be heard today. As we've set forth in the request, those are violations of basic constitutional principles of due process, of notice and opportunity to be heard. The issue here is that in the petition, the Colts Neck Association was listed as an owner that would be affected. And as we set forth in the petition, each and every lot owner in that subdivision has an interest in each of those properties. And the ditch petition law 6131 requires that any owner of land, and that includes any person with any interest, so it's not just owner in the sense of an ownership interest, it can be an easement interest or any other right or title to the property, be given notice ahead of both the viewing and also this preliminary hearing. I respectfully disagree with legal counsel that this is simply a formality. The questions before the board today are whether the proposed improvement is necessary, whether that proposed improvement is conducive to the public welfare, and whether it is reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed improvement will outweigh its cost. And I believe that every owner that's entitled to speak to that has relevant testimony, and they should be given an opportunity to be heard. There is also a potential consequence, which is that if this proceeds today and the engineer moves forward and does further planning and designs and those types of things, there will be cost. And those costs could wind up being assessed on these landowners if this petition is dismissed in the future. So I do believe that there is a possibility for a negative consequence if this board were to move forward today on these landowners who haven't been afforded notice. Aside from those issues that we raised in our request, I'd also like to raise a new issue, and I understand that the timing is hard for everybody, but due to the fact that this hearing was delayed by about 2 hours, several witnesses have left. There were numerous witnesses that we believe were ready to testify remotely, and they've gone elsewhere, so we may not have all of our witnesses present today. So I also believe that gives us a basis to either have this hearing continued or dismissed at the minimum. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I have a question. May I ask a question now?
Do you want to give the engineer an opportunity to respond to that, or you can ask a question directly?
No, I want to ask a question to you.
Okay.
Oh, and before we get that far.
You can ask a question to me
Yeah,
anytime.
just based off of what he said about being continued, because this was already continued when we were ready to go forward before a council asked for this to be continued. And then by statute, which is why you had to set this for today, oh, that's what I was gonna ask, is it could.
We have opened this hearing, so it has started.
Yep, okay, thank you.
And if I could just add one more thing, we do think that this would be an appealable issue, and there's also a civil litigator here today who has reviewed these proceedings and think that this could give rise to a cause of action, and we will have him testify to that later as well if it comes to it.
I'm ready for the engineer.
Engineer?
Yeah.
All right, how about, you okay?
Engineers?
If the engineer's office would like to come forward, please.
Oh, sure.
You want to swear?
Yeah,
Oh,
If you
sure.
could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioner Bub.
good afternoon.
Or good afternoon, I'm sorry. We started earlier.
Hey, we've been at this for a long time. Let's keep track of this. It's
We're
well
trying.
into the afternoon at this
I'm
point.
trying, Commissioner. Nick Soulis, Government Affairs Liaison for Franklin County Engineer Cornell Robertson. And Commissioners, what I wanted to address, certainly I'm not here as an attorney this afternoon, just wanted to address the factual issues that the Franklin County Engineer's Office did send notices out to all the property owners located within the watershed. The property owners that council is referring to are property owners that own property outside of the watershed. The significance of this, and I'm not going to get into the interpretation of the statute because that's a legal matter that legal counsel can address, but the significance of the property owners residing or owning property outside of the watershed is that they will not be assessed for this project. Only the owners of property within the watershed will be assessed. Council makes an argument with respect to these other forgive me, I think 20-some property owners, council, something along those lines.
Yes.
Those property owners, while they may have an interest, however that might be defined, in the common areas of the homeowners association, they won't be paying independently because their properties won't be seen as being benefited by this project. So I just wanted to state that the county engineer's office did send notice to all property owners, including, as council mentioned, the homeowners association for the common areas within the watershed.
Could I respond to that? So the Cold Stack Homeowners Association is a association existing under 5312. It's a planned community. All of its income is derived from assessments on lot owners in the community. So if a property that's owned by the association is assessed a higher value, then all of the lot owners in the community have to pay a higher amount in assessments. So while they may not directly own this property, they certainly do have an indirect interest. And that also goes for insurance, maintenance, repair, and every other responsibility that this association is in charge of overseeing on behalf of the lot owners. So although the lot owners may reside outside of the watershed, the fact that they are members of this association, and the only means by which the association can raise funds is through assessment on its owners, any higher tax liability for the association will be passed through to each and every lot owner in that community.
May I add something?
Please.
Yes, I'm Dick Rogovan, representing the Homeowners Association. On the list of affected properties were approximately 10 to 12 properties owned by the Homeowners Association. Some of them are quite substantial. The Homeowners Association and its properties were listed as affected parties in this case. If there are improvements that are taxed to the association for the work that will be done on these properties, all of the members of the association will be responsible for the costs indirectly that they will have to pay to the association. This is not just an academic exercise, it's quite serious. The opposition to this is overwhelming. Something like 145 positions filed against this and 5 filed in favor of it. And I think the clerk has all of the statements that were filed. As we are aware, the law provides an appeal at any stage of the proceeding, so that if this proceeds is not dismissed, there will be an immediate appeal filed. We may be right, we may be wrong, but if the court rules in our favor, this has to start over anyway, at which time notice can be given to everybody to whom notice should be given. Quite frankly, I think it was just maybe the engineer's office overlooked the fact that there are members of the association that should have received notice. I don't think there's any doubt what the law provides. And it really would be a shame to go down the road further, spend more time, more effort, spend more money when there is a fatal flaw in the way this was brought. Thank you.
President O'Grady, a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand this concept of indirect responsibility. It's my understanding that if you're in the watershed, you get a assessment. If you're out of it, you don't. Is that what am I not understanding about that and about the way the homeowners association may charge fees to the landowners? I'm confused by the concept of indirect.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question. So when you have a community like Colts Neck, it's overseen and governed by a homeowners association. And that association, under the law, under 5312, is in charge of administering and governing that community. The funds that are used by that association are known as common expenses. And when I use the word assessments, what I'm talking about is a defined term. Those are the fees, is another word for it, that the association charges to its members to maintain, repair, and replace the common elements. So any expense of the association is passed on through its membership, regardless of whether they're located in the watershed district or not. So, and interestingly, what this is telling us is that we have facial evidence that there are properties outside of this watershed district that will bear significant cost here. They stand no reason to benefit or not, but that's getting into the merits. But the idea is that you have the Colts Neck Homeowners Association, just to keep the numbers simple, let's say it has 100 lots. Each of those lots is responsible for paying assessments to the association so that the association can pay its expenses. So if property is owned by the association and its tax liability increases, or the cost to repair, maintain, or replace any elements on that property increases, that's passed directly to its members. And that's why I'm saying
I'm sorry, but that they're in the watershed or not in the watershed?
it doesn't matter. If they're in the watershed or not, if they're a member of the association, they have to pay the assessment.
But if they're out of the watershed, they don't.
No, they will, because they're members of the association, because it's the association that owns these reserve areas, if you will. They're known as reserve.
But the reserve area is in the watershed.
All of them are in.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
Well, but that actually feeds
That's the
to
whole
the
point of
the
the
law.
HOA.
Yeah, that actually feeds to the law, that if you're saying if the reserve area, that this portion of common area is in the watershed, then it would be subject to the assessment, to which if the landowners share ownership of that property, then they would be proportionately subject to that fee as well. That's what you're referring to as indirect?
Correct.
'Cause that's direct to me, that if you
Well,
own the
okay,
property.
direct, if you wanna say-
If you
yeah.
own the property and it's in the watershed, you're responsible for the assessment. I just want to clarify that point, because you kept making the point that everybody takes ownership, even if you're outside of the watershed. No, it's for the common property that's in the watershed. And you just said that's what it was. I just want to make sure, because that's different.
So when I use the term owner in this sense, what I'm doing is I'm referring to the way that it's defined in the Ohio Revised Code. It says owner means any owner of any right, title, estate, or interest in or to any real property. Land is defined as any estate or interest or nature of any kind. So that's why I said early on, it's broader than just this. I mean, normally when we talk about property ownership, we think of who's on the deed, who has title to the property, who's the owner. For the ditch petition purposes, owner and land have broader meanings to include rights and interest outside of just pure ownership. Those could be easement rights. And here we have certain interest.
I follow you on this. I follow you, and I guess I'm just struggling to agree with you, because again, and I don't want to belabor this, but I just want to be very clear about what is being communicated. If a property, and I'd like the prosecutor's office to just chime in on this to make sure that that this is being said right, both from their perspective. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But if you're in the watershed, assessment. If you're out, no assessment. If you own community property, or whatever the right terminology is, that is also part of the overall HOA, then that's in the watershed, then that property is assessed.
Correct, and that
then
goes.
the homeownership agency authority that owns that space is assessed, and it is divided amongst the homeowners, the 100 that you by private agreement. So I just want to make sure if you could chime in on that, to make sure I'm saying it right.
That was well said.
Yeah, and you're correct in that it is only those properties that are within the watershed that we sent notice to that would be assessed. What council's referring to is a private agreement that the homeowners association ends up entering into with the entire area, that says if these entities receive an assessment, we may spread it around. But in terms of the statutory assessment that you would be responsible for, it would go to the property owners within the watershed. And I would also say, for the record, that that the board needs to consider is that even if there is an argument that council is making that there may be individuals who did not receive notice, there is a statutory provision within the code that addresses anyone who may not have received notice and how you can remedy that through common pleas court when and if that assessment occurs, and that's under 613155. My recommendation as you look at this is that you allow the hearing to move forward, and you could either rule right now on the request for dismissal, or you can hold off on that decision and move forward with the hearing. Either way, I think moving forward with the hearing is an appropriate, given where we're at today. If you decide to move forward with either approving or dismissing the hearing, that would determine whether or not we actually have a hearing. If you agree with the request for dismissal, then you would not have a hearing.
And just, I want to make sure I clear it, so the engineer's office is not your objection to that?
The engineer's office has stated on the record and under oath that they have complied with the statutory provisions of providing notice to owners who are subject, that would be subject to the assessment and are owners within the watershed.
So you're not supportive of the?
That's good. We feel we've done what is statutorily required, Commissioners.
And then President O'Grady, may I continue, please? So my question then to the bottom line for you is that if it were dismissed, then the homeowners that, talk about the plight of the homeowners that, from an engineering perspective, that are in the watershed, that talk about the issues that occur if this is dismissed. Then what happens?
What happens would be that we would be starting fresh, as council had indicated. We would probably await another petition. As you know, this petition was filed by Jefferson Township, signed off on by one property owner, and then subsequently amended by the addition of another property owner, individual property owner within the watershed. So what would happen is the project wouldn't move forward, quite frankly, until such time as another petition were brought forward, and this matter, we'd come to another hearing, another viewing, another hearing, and if we move forward, then eventually, at some point in the distant future, the project would commence. But until then, Abigail Obert of our engineer's office is prepared to present the very real facts of what is going on within the subdivision. We've got video, we've got photographs as a part of the presentation for this. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
May I ask a question of the witness, please? Sir, hi, Dick Rogovan, representing the HOA. Is it your testimony that every property interest to be affected by this project has been served, properly served? I mean, not only people with an interest by deed, but people with an interest by easement or an indirect interest as a member of the association. Has every person with an interest in this project, legal interest in this project, been served?
Mr. Rogovan, I will give you a non-legal answer that, yes, it is my testimony that I believe that everyone was served in accordance with the statutory requirements. The reason I say that, because if I understand your arguments of indirect interest, keep in mind there's township property that is the township owns property within the watershed. Taking your arguments, as I understand them, to a logical conclusion, that would mean notice would need to be provided to the entire township, to every resident within the township, because the township would be subject to pay. If there was an assessment, the township would be subject to pay, and therefore the township residents would be indirectly affected. We also have, in that to me, belies the intent and certainly is not a logical conclusion. We have petition ditches that involve state route 665, for example. That would mean notice would need to be provided to every state resident, and that doesn't make sense to me. So that's my answer, sir, non-legal answer, but it is my belief that we have complied with the statute. So
You understand that a person with, who is a voter and resident of the Jefferson Township does not have an ownership interest, a legal ownership interest in the township. But a person with an easement interest in property held in common by a homeowners association, that's a totally different kind of interest. That's a legally recognized property interest, which a citizen of the township doesn't have in the township.
I can understand that
There are
concept,
two
yes.
different things we're talking about. And we're being careful to be very precise in how we handle this, because quite frankly, the residents of the area and the members of HOA don't want to have to go through all this again
Okay.
if there's a mistake made and that it gets reversed by the court, because an appeal can be taken at any time from these proceedings to the court. And if there is a mistake that's obvious at this point, it saves everybody a lot of time, money, and aggravation if this is fixed at the outset, which is what we're suggesting. You understand that?
Yeah, I think I do.
Thank you.
So I have a question, President O'Grady.
Please.
To council, because you referenced, or our council, section 6131.55, even if there was a owner of an easement who believed that they had a right, they have a remedy to file a claim with common pleas court, correct?
That's correct.
So even to council's questioning of the engineer's office, they still have a legal remedy and a course of action if they believe they had a right, and that they are owner of land that would be affected even with the easement, so.
Now, we have one more witness. We could,
Is this on the motion?
yes. Rex?
Okay, and at this time then, commissioners, if you're okay, we can have that, is that witness here in person or are they virtually participating? Okay.
They're here in person.
Okay, so, sir, if you'd like to come up to the podium, I'll need to swear you in first.
Do your thing.
And this testimony is limited solely to the request for dismissal and not any other piece, correct?
Yes.
All right. Sir, if you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the transcription services,
My
please.
name is Rex Elliott. Last name is Elliott.
Good afternoon, Mr. Elliott. My name is Brian Hunt. I'm an attorney for the Colts Neck Homeowners Association. Thank you for being here this afternoon. You've identified yourself for the record. Could you tell us about your employment? What is your position?
Yes, I'm an attorney licensed to practice in the state of Ohio and the state of New York. I was licensed in New York first in 1989, and in the state of Ohio, I believe, in 1991. I'm a complex civil litigator. My law firm is Cooper Elliott. We've been in existence since 1995.
Okay. And where did you go to law school?
I went to law school at the Syracuse University College of Law,
What year did you graduate?
1988.
Have you been practicing on law pretty much uninterrupted for the last 35 years?
Yes, I began my career on Wall Street in New York City at Sullivan and Cromwell, came back to Columbus, was at Porter Wright for a number of years, and as I stated, started my own law firm in 1995.
Okay. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the types of cases that you handle?
Yes, we're a complex civil litigation practice, everything from complex business litigation to civil rights disputes, wrongful death and serious injury, catastrophic injury cases, wrongful incarceration, I could go on and on. Any case that has complex civil litigation issues, we do some class action work as well, mass torts, and again, there are other areas as well.
And have you been involved in cases that pertain to civil rights?
Yes, we have, and we've also been involved in large, complex real estate matters as well.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the proceedings in this matter?
I have.
Have you formed an opinion on whether there's any cause of action or legal issues should this joint board move forward today?
Well, the first and most obvious is the due process violation that we've been talking about here in the last 10 or 15 minutes with affected property owners in a very significant legal proceeding here that haven't had the opportunity to have notice and be heard. The reality is there's significant opposition to this project, and anybody that could be impacted by this or assessed a monetary assessment should have the opportunity to step forward and voice their opposition to the project.
Okay.
Commissioners, before we move forward with any further testimony, if Mr. Elliott is representing the interests of these individuals, I don't believe it's proper testimony today with regard to the request for dismissal right now before on the merits of this matter, versus this is an indication of rights that.
Well, Mr. Elliott, do you have any clients right now?
I do not represent any of the affected property owners.
Well, I mean, no offense, Mr. Elliott, I know, appreciate. I'm sure
Sir,
that
if
we
we
all,
could prevent comment from the gallery. Thank
I'm
you.
sure that we all appreciate Mr. Elliott's resume. But this isn't a court of law. This is a Board of County Commissioners General's, session, ditch petition viewing. So, I mean, this is not a legal proceeding. So,
It's a quasi-judicial
well,
administrative hearing.
I'm sorry, it's a quasi-judicial and administrative hearing, but this is not a court of law. So we appreciate your experience and your expertise, and we appreciate gentlemen, we appreciate your expertise and experience. And don't get me wrong, we want to get as much information as we possibly can here, but let's be clear here that this is not, this is what it is. This is a ditch petition hearing, and while this is a very complex ditch petition hearing, and thanks to the legislature, which I don't generally say, at least not lately, we are not out traipsing around. No offense, I'd love to come out and see all of your property at some point, but it's nice that we're not traipsing around your property, and that we have the ability to view all of this stuff virtually and through drone footage and through maps. But I just want to make sure that we're all clear that this is this is only a quasi-judicial hearing. This is not a courtroom. So, I'm sorry. Proceed, please.
Appreciate that. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
The only thing I was about to add is that, as to the issue of the dismissal, it is a significant issue, and I do, again, from a legal standpoint, believe that everybody has an opportunity that's going to be affected to have notice and an opportunity to voice their opposition here. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, at this time, if the arguments are finished, you will need to make a decision on whether there will need to be a motion to either grant or deny this dismissal, which will require a second. You also are permitted to take this matter under advisement and still proceed with this first hearing.
I'd just like to add one last thing, and I'll step out of the way at that point. Simply because there's a remedy available under the statute, it should not be a basis to just move forward recklessly. I think we've pointed out a pretty significant issue, and again, when we're talking about the 14th Amendment in Ohio Constitution, I mean, those are serious issues, and this is really kind of basic black and white stuff where we have people that have an interest in this property, and they have an easement interest, they've got an interest through their association, The law is pretty clear in defining an owner and land very broadly under the ditch petition law, and it's evident that the requisite people have not received notice. And I think I'd just like to point, I mean, litigation is time consuming and costly for everybody, and especially personal litigants. And simply moving forward with the idea, well, they can fix it if they want to on the backside, seems rather unjust to me. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
I personally felt like we have no option but to proceed. The dismissal just didn't make sense to me.
Well, I'm the only one with a microphone on here, so.
Commissioners, so at this time, you can either move into an executive section or we can make a decision, but there does have to be a motion either way to either approve or deny the dismissal or take it under advisement. And again, that would need a second.
We need to move into executive session. Sorry to repeat this, I just.
No, it's okay.
Make sure I understand. Move into executive session to discuss the potential of dismissal. And we could come out of that and still move forward with the hearing, or we could go either way.
That's correct,
So that
Commissioner.
gives us a chance to
And if you could make sure your
discuss.
microphone is
Oh,
on.
I apologize, I'm so sorry. Or just continue with the hearing.
That's
Make
correct,
sure.
Commissioner.
And how many speakers do we have?
So we don't have a number of speakers necessarily. I haven't quantified that, but there are folks online that may be wanting to testify as well as in this room, but we wouldn't know that until after this dismissal entry is handled.
I would say that there are plenty.
But there are an
Qualified.
abundance of people
Yeah, an
present
abundance-
and.
An abundance is a better word, a better way to put it. And Commissioner, do you have anything you wanted to
I
add?
don't.
Okay.
Bub,
Consider.
see, Bub has it.
Commissioner Bub, do you have anything that you want to add at this point?
Yeah, can you hear me, John?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, it's kind of a dilemma. It might actually, if you think about it, be quicker to dismiss and allow the petition to be refiled and maybe more broadly advertised if that's the problem. I think we all know that if over opposition to this, it becomes a matter of litigation over just notification. It can be expensive and time consuming, and you don't really get to the process. The process is to actually get to the hearing and see whether the public welfare is served and whether this petition really needs to move forward to the next step. So I would suggest to my friends in Franklin County, we consider a dismissal at this point to avoid potential litigation over whether or not there was proper notification. If the trustees and the resident or residents of Jefferson Township choose then to refile the petition, it could be advertised more broadly to the HOA, which would solve that problem, and we could get to a hearing and hear the merits of this one way or another in the near future, and then decide whether we want to ask Engineer Robertson to take this to the next level and actually put some real numbers with the potential improvement and see what the impact would be. But I think we're at a little bit of a conundrum now, and I'm not sure that fighting this out in court over just the notification process really is good policy. It might be better to cut bait at this point and allow the petition to be refiled and to re-advertise it. I'd say the same thing in executive session or say it in public session. That's just how I look at it. But the other option is to move ahead, and if it's litigated, it's litigated, but let's hear the evidence and then decide today whether we want to move forward to the next level.
President O'Grady, my vice president. Yeah, I guess I want to. I struggle with this conversation about notification. We've heard from the prosecutor's office that there's a remedy in the Ohio Revised Code that is set up for that, because I can think of a number of scenarios where someone the outreach of notification might not make it to their hands. The law probably took that into account. But I guess I'm curious from the engineer's perspective as to how, again, you see it in terms of the notification and what efforts went out. Because it would be if it was found that we didn't execute a appropriate notification process of some sort, that would be not fair. And so I just want, and I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying I want to restate for the listening audience here exactly what the perspective of notification was from the engineer's office, and then I'll turn back over to the president for their direction.
I appreciate, excuse me, I appreciate that, Commissioner Boyce, and I do appreciate Commissioner Bub's comments, and I do understand those. However, we do feel that we have complied with the statute. The concern that we have with respect, the concern of an interpretation of the statute, as counsel is advocating, would be overly burdensome in trying to determine who might have, whenever a petition process would come forward, and trying to determine who might have right of access, and easement access, and I apologize, I forgot the term, an indirect interest in the property. That might be so burdensome that future petitions might not be able, we might not be able to do that. And I can't state that, with certainty, because I don't know, because we've never taken that interpretation. Taking that interpretation without, whether it's an Attorney General's opinion or an appeal in this case, and having a court rule on it, because I don't know that any court has, I don't know that a court has looked at this. If the court has and there's case law out there, happy to look at that. But absent that, that would be an overly burdensome interpretation to take.
Yeah, that's where I was going, asking the questions earlier about indirect versus, I really was struggling trying to look at what the sort of qualifying standard is from that standpoint. And so I agree with you, but just in that point, so what is, when you say an effort was made, who was reached out to, how were they reached out to, how were they notified, and do we have a way of assessing the confirmation of that deliberate notification, or is it just like you go put up a sign and everybody within a mile should see that kind of thing? I mean, like, what's the process?
Right, they're certified, right? They were sent out letters, so we go through and identify the watershed. Mm-hmm. Our office identifies what we reasonably think the watershed to be, because until detailed plans are performed, we're guessing at boundaries, so we tend to be a little bit over-inclusive. And we do notify by certified mail each and every property owner that resides within the watershed. And we look at the Franklin County Auditor's GIS system in order to determine who the current owners are of those properties. We also publish, I do believe, in the Daily Reporter or Dispatch? I apologize. Daily Reporter. I wasn't aware of that fact, which one was which. But we do publish in the Daily Reporter as well, to notify individuals of this petition being filed and the process starting.
So the addresses would get letters and you publish in the Daily Reporter?
Correct. And I believe we mail it to the tax mailing address as well, where that might be different for property owners.
And is it certified mail? Do they have to
Yes.
sign for the receiving of that mail?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And so do you know if the properties that were within the watershed that received that notice, do you have a?
What I can tell you, and I think counsel, actually all the attorneys here can probably verify or testify to, we send everything out certified mail. The post office, however, lately has not always been returning the green cards, nor has the post office always secured signatures. That's a failing that we have, and I'm sure the clerk of courts has mentioned that in the past. That is an issue. However, we do send it out certified mail as required by statute.
But what you're telling me, Mr. President, what you're telling me is that we can't necessarily confirm receipt of the notification. And I'm not saying it, I'm not going to question. I think that we have a very high standard engineer's office, and I'm very confident they've done what they said they did. But ensuring that someone received it on the other end and confirming that is, that it would be appropriate to have a sense of that, not an exact count or number, because it's not up to us, not 100% up to us. Because even if we started the process over, how do you ensure that people got the notification process? And that's where I would struggle with.
Yeah.
I think your colleague has something that says she set up.
So,
She can testimony.
Yeah, you can come on.
I will have to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And please be sure to state your name.
Abigail Obert, Franklin County Engineers Office, Drainage Project Engineer and Training. What Nick said was right. We do go through, we draw in what we believe the watershed boundary is. We use 1-foot GIS contours provided from a couple years ago to do so. And then we are over inclusive with how we do that. So if we have a portion of the watershed that we believe may or may not be in but needs further field investigation, at this point in the petition process, you haven't really approved for us to do detailed design, so we just make our best judgment and include those parcels as well. Then we use the most up-to-date version of the auditor's website to send out those letters, and they are sent certified mail with read receipt. So I have, when we send them out, which for this one was about 400 letters, it has the sticker on it, so with a little receipt for when I send it out, and then hypothetically the residents sign the green card, and then that also gets brought back to me. Now that process is not determined by us. That would then be determined by the post office. But so we do have confirmation of some residents when those green cards get returned back to me that some of them have received that. But again, that's kind of out of our
Do we know
hands.
what percentage was received back on this petition?
Not yet. Because we had to send out for this continuance of the hearing, we sent out another round of letters, and I haven't received all of those yet. They still come in daily. But for the viewing and the first part of the hearing, we received the majority of them, yeah.
Abby, do you also send those out by ordinary mail as well, or is it just the certified?
No, it's just certified.
And the statutory provision is really required to send them out by certified mail, and that obligation is met. I understand the commissioners are concerned with individuals receiving the notice, but in terms of what is statutorily required, we are required to show that those were sent by certified mail.
Could I speak to one point real quick? The term burdensome was raised, and I just would like to remind the commissioners, this is a major project, and this type of proceeding has been compared to eminent domain and appropriation by case. And that's not what's going on here, I understand that, but that's the type of action that we're talking about taking. There's a petition that's been filed that has proposed to detrimentally impact, in our opinion, many property owners. And it'll cause major disruption, major construction in this watershed district. And a lot of people are here today, and a lot of people have filed statements saying that we don't want it. Worse than that, the folks that don't want it are going to have to pay for it. And there's a good number of people out there that have not received notice and will not be given the opportunity to be heard, and I think it's only fair. And at this stage, and I apologize, I forget the commissioner's name, even approaching this from a cost-benefit analysis, not much is lost if this petition is dismissed at this point and refiled. If this board were to move forward today, there could be major cost associated with that, though. Things could be held up in court through an appeal, through separate causes of action that we've talked about today. It just seems to me that the prudent decision is to dismiss at this point.
May I add something? Did it ever occur to your office to ask the association for a membership list? You seem to suggest that it would be difficult to know who to serve. We're talking about members of the association who are not served. It's an established association with a published membership list, which if anybody had asked us for it, we would have given it. We have one with us. So, and the membership list contains names, addresses, telephone numbers, and email addresses. It's all there. 104 names. Of the 104, I think you only served how many?
89.
89.
Correct, the 89 that we believe are in the watershed.
Yes, okay. But the people I'm talking about who weren't served have property interests in the watershed. They may not live in the watershed, but they have a property interest in the watershed. That's the problem here. The property interest is through the membership of the association. It's an easement. It's a matter of public record, actually, because these plats are filed with the recorder's office. But you don't have to go that far. All you need is a membership list. That's all.
I understand your comments, sir.
Yeah.
So Commissioners, at this point, I do want to just keep you on track here and remind you that we do have to make a motion to either approve or deny this dismissal request or take this matter under advisement and proceed with the first hearing.
Do we want to go ahead and make a decision now, or do we want to go into executive session? Either going to make a motion or...
First, I wouldn't mind a brief executive session.
While the Commissioners are making a decision, I do just want to remind everybody in the room to, that when they do come up, if we do proceed to testify, that you will need to state your name and I will need to place you under oath before you do provide testimony. And your address and parcel number. Okay, at this time, I was just informed that the Commissioners would like to make, we will need a motion to move into executive session. And so what that does mean for folks in the room and online is we will create a room, Commissioner Bubb, for you to join virtually. And then we will ask everybody that is physically present in this room to move outside of this room at that time. So Commissioners, I do need a motion.
Move to convene into executive session?
Second.
Moved and seconded voting.
Litigation.
Okay.
If you could reflect.
Move to go into executive session for litigation, for the purpose of discussing litigation.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved to go into executive session. I will create that room now, Commissioner Bubb. All right, Commissioners, there needs to be a motion to come out of executive session.
Move
I'll
to
make
come
that
out.
motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Thank you. We are now out of executive session. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Somebody want to make a motion?
I move to dismiss the,
No?
Deny.
to deny the motion to dismiss the
request for
the
dismissal.
request for dismissal.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Thank you. The request for dismissal has been denied, and the hearing will proceed.
All right, so just so we're clear, so the motion has been denied. That being said, the Franklin County Board of Commissioners will not assess the cost to the residents of the plans and specifications for the proposed project moving forward. So none of the residents will be assessed any costs as we move forward on the plans and specifications.
So
Sorry, I'll
to
let
clarify,
Janine clarify.
Commissioners, it's my understanding the Commissioners are stating that if at the conclusion of the hearing, first hearing, there is a decision to move forward with plan specifications and assessment based on the findings, the Commissioners will not be assessing the cost of those plans and specifications if you end up moving forward with the notice to proceed on the project.
Exactly,
And that's being placed on the record.
yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And
That's
so,
fair.
as previously stated, this matter has been set today for the continuance of the first hearing of the Coal Ditch Joint County petition, which lays out plans and specifications for this proposed project. The findings will be made for the limited purpose as set forth in ORC 613112 and does not obligate the joint board to move forward with the construction of the improvement. Any documents or evidence you wish to submit into the record, please do so at the time of your presentation. All witnesses who testify in this matter shall state their full name, county, address, or parcel number, and be sworn in by myself, the clerk, prior to their testimony. Before we begin the hearing and prior to the testimony, I would like to ask all members of the county engineer's offices to please rise for their oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you very much. And we will begin with the presentation by the Franklin County Engineer's Office.
Great. Hello, Abigail Obert, Franklin County Engineers Office, Drainage Project Engineer in Training. We'll get started very quickly with our presentation. Once again, this is just stating facts of the petition, and I also have a couple videos of the area that we'll be showing as well. So just a schedule of the petition so far. The petition was filed on May 24th, 2023. The Franklin County Engineers Office hosted an informational meeting on September 13th, 2023. The view was held on September 18th, 2023. We had a second additional informational meeting held on October 16th, 2023. And we had the first hearing started on October 24th, 2023, and the continuance today. So at the first hearing, the county engineer files a preliminary report, so you'll have that in front of you. It includes a preliminary cost estimate, a statement of feasibility, and a cost-benefit analysis for the project as a whole. At this time, individual parcel assessments have not been calculated yet, and so cost-benefits analysis for parcels individually cannot be made. Landowners within the watershed may testify at the first hearing for or against the petition. And then at the end of the hearing, the Board of Commissioners will vote to either proceed with or dismiss the petition. If there's a vote to proceed, as mentioned before, the engineer's office will begin preparing the plans, schedule of assessments, and final report. Now, since this is a joint county petition, these will all be done with Licking County Engineer's Office as well. Yeah, we're good. So we're going to start with a drone video. So we do have 4 separate sections of the video, so try to lay them out, but I'll try to go through them as well. Now this is sped up 175%. Any faster you get kind of dizzy watching it, but so we're actually traveling east down Havens Road at the moment. This drone video we usually show at the view, but we're also showing it again here at the continuance. So this is now the intersection of Havens Road and Wagner Road. We are now heading north along Wagner Road. This video was taken on August 24th of 23 by members of the Franklin County Engineer's Office. So that bridge right there is actually part of the open part of Colditch. As you can tell, there's an open channel right there, and that's part of the lateral of Colditch. So we just have to play it the way we know. Since this was taken in the summer, there's a lot of leaves on the trees, and I promise the ditch is there. So the ditch is then seen again on the right side of the screen before headed back into the trees. So this land in particular where the ditch is located right now is owned by the Jefferson Township part of the farms at Jefferson Reserve. We are now at Dixon Road. We will be turning and moving south down Dixon Road and then again down Colditch. So the reason that we're actually showing this is at the view, one of the members of the joint board requested that a drone video of the entire watershed be shown.
So Abigail,
Yes,
you said this is late August?
yes, August 24th.
Why aren't we viewing drone video of a ditch at one of the driest parts of the year, generally speaking?
It was due to the timing of when the petition was filed and when the view and the first hearing were taking place. It was just in summer. It's usually, we've had an abnormally dry season.
I mean, generally, when we are viewing ditches, either when we've been out in them, I've never been out actually in a ditch with you. Whenever they're either
But you
when we.
passed
We're good.
legislation.
I was in the
Allow it.
legislature.
Yeah, thankfully
Yes, I
for
was in the
passing
legislature at the time.
legislation.
Yes.
Either when I've been out
No,
in the
we're good.
ditches with Commissioner Boyce and previously with Commissioner Brown, or when we viewed them, drone video of them, the video is usually from February or March. And it's of what we're looking at right there, where the water is, pretty deep and pretty expansive. So it's just interesting to me that we would have video of, clearly there must have been some recent rain there in August, but, high vegetation and.
Right. It's just due to the schedule of the petition, so it was filed in May, so we haven't really had that dry season of, January, February yet. So.
Gotcha.
Also at the view, there were some videos shown, and you wanted some dates on those as well as precipitation events. So, did you want to? We'll just do those real quick. Oh. And then this is also a shorter drone video, but this is of Licking County in particular. So we've been focusing a lot on Franklin County, but wanted to make sure that we included Licking County as well. So this might be okay to speed up. If not, it's cool.
Stuff out in Brown Township, water as far as the eye could see.
So at this point in the video, we are traveling east down Sims Road. It's maintained by the city of Pataskala. So I just want to make the point that in this drone video, you don't see the existing channel of Colditch, and that's due to the fact that Colditch, as an open surface channel, does not, there is not the existing Colditch in Licking County. So while Licking County is part of the watershed, there's not an existing Colditch petition for the county. So that's why we're not following a channel at the moment, is because there is not one.
Well, a nice-looking county.
You should be proud, Commissioner, you should be proud.
this is, the drone video is more to just get a sense of the watershed as a whole, so.
Yeah, I'm curious, do we fly the drones in-house or do we contract with third party?
We have 2 people in the engineer's office that are licensed to fly them. Mhm. So this video was shown at the viewing and asking about dates on it, so we just wanted to go back to that. So this was actually, was taken July 6th of 2022 after 4.56 inches of precipitation over 2 days. So that would be similar to a 25-year storm over 24 hours, but again, this is over 2 days. So.
This is
And then a second video shown at the viewing. It was taken on May 6th of 2022, and this was after 1.91 inches of rain, and that is less than a 1-year event. So what that means is that this has a 100% chance of happening here. So there is a pedestrian bridge that's just kind of at the water level as well, but this is private property owned in the downstream part of the watershed. We just wanted to, housekeeping wise, view those as well, so.
That's just a pretty good rainstorm there. That's nothing spectacular.
Yeah, so components of the final report that you have in front of you, outline of the petition process, how we've gone through it so far, existing conditions of Coal Ditch. We've also included a section for residential complaints that we've received in the area, along with the watershed study that was completed for the Coal Ditch watershed. We include a preliminary cost estimate, factors favorable and unfavorable to the improvement, a benefit versus cost analysis at this stage, and then a conclusion. So just once again going over the watershed for Coal Ditch. The watershed is outlined, it's highlighted in the blue. The existing Coal Ditch petition is in the yellow, marked with yellow. And then the properties highlighted in red are the what's been petitioned for. So the township maintains McCohen Road, Havens Road, Dixon Road, as well as Colts Neck and Coptail. So those roads are highlighted in red because they are owned, the right-of-way is owned by the township. And then as well as two private properties, one owned by Julie Doctor, who signed the petition, and then another owned by Jack Martin, who then amended the petition to add his property to the petition. So just some background of the petition. So it was filed by the Jefferson Township Board of Trustees, and then it was signed by Julie Doctor and amended by Jack Martin. And the petition states to improve drainage to a good and sufficient outlet by replacing, repairing, or altering the existing improvements as required and creating a new surface and subsurface drainage, mains, and laterals. The petition specifically called out Dixon Road, McCohen Road, Havens Road, Creek Hollow Road, and Coptail Way. So this picture to the right was actually submitted by the township of Creek Hollow Road, so that's within the Colts Neck subdivision. It was taken on February 7th of 2019 after 1.94 inches of rainfall over 2 days, and this is less than the 1 year 24-hour storm event. So 1 year 24-hour storm event is 2.2 inches of rain, so that's less than that spread over 2 days. And this was an image taken after that. The total watershed area, as we have it calculated right now, is 1,132 acres. Franklin County portion of the watershed is about 894 acres. That includes 341 parcels currently in Franklin County. And then King County watershed area is 238 acres with 70 parcels currently. So the picture to the right was submitted by one of the residents. So this is at address 7706 Havens Road. It is owned by one of the petitioners. It was taken on March 24th, 2023, after 1.93 inches of rainfall over 3 days, and that is still less than the 1-year 24-hour event of 2.2 inches. The ditch itself consists of approximately 24,740 feet of open channel and numerous road and driveway culverts. We have several complaints in the area of driveways being overtopped with water in the downstream area, and then overall just inadequate drainage infrastructure for the area. So the proposed scope of work as described in the report include clearing and snagging along the ditch just to remove dead trees, log jams, and other obstructions, sediment removal from the ditch when needed, ditch shaping and grade adjustments, ground surface shaping and grading, so making sure that there aren't just, low spots in the watershed where it would just pond. Subsurface storm tile installation, so that's just putting pipe in the ground. Road culvert installation, private driveway culvert replacement when necessary, and then seeding and mulching at the end. And I did want to just note that we are sensitive to the existing landscaping in the area. A lot of residents put a lot of work into their yards, and so we can definitely be mindful of that when designing the improvement. So the cost estimate for the project, including all of those as scopes of work, the construction came out to around $2.8 million. The project administration, engineering, and inspection, so that would include the design of the project and then administering and inspecting the construction as it's happening, is around $292,000. And then the drainage maintenance, first year startup, that's through the Ohio Revised Code, would be around $57,570 for a total project estimate of around $3,228,000. So again, these are all preliminary. We have not done survey, design, plan specifications, anything like that yet. In addition, Franklin County will be directly assessed for improvements constructed in or directly benefiting the Wagner Road right-of-way. Wagner Road is a Franklin County maintained road, and so any improvements made within the right-of-way will be directly assessed to the county. Individual parcels assessments have not been calculated at this time, so it's just an overall estimate for the project. So in the watershed study, which should be an exhibit with that you all have.
Would you like me to pull that up, Abby?
No.
Okay.
No, just you all have a copy of the watershed study completed by VS Engineering earlier this year. So it did come up. That watershed study looked at the watershed as a whole and came up with 11 project areas, potential areas for improvement within the watershed. We did roll out several, so we rolled out project area 2, option B. Due to the cost-benefit analysis, we didn't think that that the benefits outweighed the cost for that. Project area 6 was not appropriate for the petition to have included as part of the work. Project areas 8 and 9 were not specifically requested in the project. And then project 11 as well is just not feasible for the petition. So those have been crossed out. The rest of the project areas, so 1, 2, option A, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 10 are all included with the proposed scope of work at this time. So here, Appendix B of the first.
Just a quick question. What's
Yes.
the duration of the assessment?
It would be the construction assessment is over 15 years, up to 15 years. That would be decided at the final hearing by the joint board.
Thanks.
This is just Appendix B of the preliminary report, so it just shows the locations of the proposed projects as described in the study. And then crossing out what we have excluded from this petition because it's not appropriate for the petition. That's what you're left with. So factors favorable to this petition, I won't go through all of them, but just highlighting a couple. It would improve drainage outlets to Havens Road, Dixon Road, and McCowan Road. Improve drainage along Creek Hollow Road and Cobtail Way. It would increase safety for residents and drivers due to less surface ponding and road flooding. And then, as well as there are annual inspections and maintenance in perpetuity for this improvement. Unfavorable, temporary land use disruption during construction. The cost of construction and maintenance may be a burden to some landowners. And then the removal of existing vegetation in the improvement area. But again, the vegetation would then be specified in the plans later. So, just a couple more statistics about the watershed. So of the 1,132 acres, approximately 225 are agricultural by nature. And then studies done by The Ohio State University show that improved drainage increases crop yields. Communities with good drainage systems tend to have higher resale values, so that would indirectly increase the property values in the area. So that potential benefit would be around $1.1 million when considering the 304 residential parcels. And then home sewage treatment systems. So there are 62 residential properties in the watershed that use a home sewage treatment system. And so those all need an adequate outlet. So if those fail due to numerous reasons, but having a poor outlet can actually decrease the lifespan of it. So those tend to be around $30,000 on average to replace. And then our recommendation from the Franklin County Engineer's Office is that we believe that this petition is technically feasible and would adequately serve the project area's drainage needs, and that the benefits seen from the project are likely to exceed the estimated cost. So that's all. I do also want to mention that you've received a lot of letters and comments from property owners. So we just did a quick a tally of what you received. So total, there are 118 parcels that have sent in letters in opposition. There were some that were duplicates. So after taking out both the husband and wife, sending in letters, 118 parcels have sent in letters. There are also 7 parcels that have sent in letters in support. 7 parcels that are not within the watershed that sent in letters. 1 letter received from a resident who is not the one letter received from a resident who is not the owner of the house, as well as 1 letter received from a previous owner who has since sold and moved. So just not in the watershed, the seven letters, I was told to list the addresses. So that includes 2323 Colts Neck Road, 8277 McCowan Road, 8333 Havens Road, 2457 Colts Neck Road, 8283 Havens Road, 2573 Swisher Creek Drive, and 2681 Swisher Creek Drive. Letters were received from those properties, however, the addresses are not in the watershed. So.
Thank you, Abby. At this time, Commissioners, it would be an opportunity for anybody else from the engineer's office to provide testimony before we do move on to landowners and their counsel. So I would like to see if anybody else has any further comment or testimony from the engineer's office at this time.
Do you want your documents admitted into the record?
Yes, we would move to admit everything that's been submitted into the record as a part of these proceedings.
Thank you very much. So we would need a motion to admit all of the evidence presented at this point, up until this point.
I'll make that motion. Tim
Second.
Bub?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Thank you. All the evidence provided until this point has been admitted, and thank you. At this time,
Pardon me, before we move on to public comment, will we be given an opportunity to cross-examine?
They have every right under the quasi-judicial process.
yeah, so I was going to say that. So yes,
No,
sir.
thank
At
you.
this,
Okay.
no, that's okay. So at this point, if you would like to question or provide any comment to the engineer's office before we move, you may proceed.
I would, please. Yes, Abby. I believe. Good afternoon. You may have to bear with me for a minute. I just got the preliminary report about 15 minutes ago, so I've just tried to digest, and I've got a few questions at this point. So it looks like you went through the statutory requirements and attempted to show the four things that are listed. We'll start with a preliminary estimate of the cost of the improved project, or the proposed improvement, which is on page 7 of the report. So there are costs broken out for construction, project administration, engineering and inspection, and then drainage maintenance. And again, if this is evident, I apologize, I haven't had a chance to read this, but where did these figures come from, and how did you come up with these numbers?
So the construction estimate included some of the proposed project areas listed from the watershed study, but also included other items that weren't included in the study, so that the actual shaping and regrading of the ditch, the clearing and snagging, various items like that that weren't outlined in the study were included in the construction estimate.
So, and again, so where did those figures come from? Are those just common average construction cost, or how did you come up with those numbers?
We typically use recent bids from our own office, or Ohio Department of Transportation also has, they list their average bid prices for these line items, because most of them are typical and used throughout many projects.
Okay, and so there's a table on page 8 where the improvement is broken out into project areas. If I were to add up the construction estimate for those areas, it sounds like that would not equal your estimate because other factors were taken into account, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but we're not seeing those factors in this report, correct? And there's no way for us to ascertain that from this report?
Not from this report.
Okay. Are those figures available anywhere else?
You can email me.
Okay, I probably will. All right. Comments on the feasibility of the project. I see in your conclusions, as you put up on the PowerPoint, that Franklin County and Licking County engineers believe this petition is technically feasible. Is there anything else in this report that speaks to that other than that conclusory statement? I didn't see any sections on feasibility or how you reached that conclusion.
Specific sections of feasibility were not addressed in this report. The petition itself asks for outlets for the roads maintained by the townships, and so we believe that this petition will technically feasible. This petition is technically feasible for what is the petition asking for.
Okay, and just so we're all talking about, when you're saying feasible, what does that mean to the engineer's office?
Yeah, it's possible. It's constructible. The outlet is lower than what's coming towards it.
Okay.
So in this instance, the roads are looking for an outlet, so can the water drain from the road?
So can you give me an example of a project that would not be feasible, just so I can visualize that?
For example, if there was a petition where the road was actually lower than what the outlet is proposed to be, then that's not technically feasible because without a pump, water can't go uphill.
Okay. Okay. But in this case, at least as far as the ditch is concerned, everything's in the right place from the engineer's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you're making the feasibility determination?
Correct.
Okay.
We believe that this project is feasible, constructible, possible to the extent of what the petition is asking for.
And so you're just looking at the physical characteristics of the land to make sure that that's what you're looking at?
As we know of for right now. So at this point, we really haven't, we aren't given the opportunity to do much field investigation because we haven't gone past the first hearing yet. So at this point, for what we believe, yes.
Okay, so has anybody walked the coal ditch?
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
You have, okay, and so you've seen this yourself, and you've reached this determination that it's feasible?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. The opinion on whether the benefits of the project are likely to exceed the estimated cost. You do have a section on benefits versus cost. The first paragraph appears to speak mainly about agricultural results. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And can you just go through that for me and explain what this is telling us?
So there's a Ohio State University Extension Office completed some research a couple years ago, and their conclusions came to that agricultural areas with improved drainage or some way to outlet actually increases their crop yields. So in their study, it showed that subsurface drainage increased corn yields by 24 to 39% and increased soybean yields somewhere between 13 to 46%. So the cost benefit from this is where reporting is that improved drainage for the 225 acres of agriculture in this watershed could have the potential to increase the crop yields and therefore increase profit for those who own that property.
Okay. And it looks like you say that there are 225 acres of agricultural land in the Cold Ditch watershed. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
as of right now.
As of right now, out of roughly 1,100 acres total.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about 20%. So that 20% might benefit, but that would be unique strictly to that agricultural use, correct?
For this,
For this
what we're
section of the
talking about,
analysis?
yes.
Okay. Have you had reports of agricultural issues in this area? Have any farmers raised concerns with the amount of standing water or anything like that?
Not to my recollection, I have not seen complaints from farmers.
So we don't know whether or not any farmland is in need of any drainage improvements for certain.
I don't farm in the watershed, so I'm not sure.
Okay, but, so we don't have anything that says that there are issues with agricultural land in the watershed that's resulting from the flooding?
None recorded.
Okay. So the answer is no?
No.
Okay, thank you. You go on to talk about gauging the impact on residential properties and land values. Could you talk a little bit about the analysis the engineer does when determining what effects or what benefits a project like this would have on residential values that are non-agricultural?
Sure. So we do have a total appraised value for Franklin County residential properties. That was determined by the auditor's office as of when this was written in October. So that's where that number came from for the total appraised value. And then when we are looking at the benefit to houses, in Franklin County, we're seeing a lot of development right now, and so on average for new subdivisions, it is around $3,700 per lot, and that is the total construction cost for drainage for new subdivisions, so that's where we calculate for that number. As the report states, it's somewhat difficult to determine a benefit to a residential property.
Okay, so the average value is derived from the auditor's records, it sounds like, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And are you aware, or do you have any knowledge as to how the auditor's appraisal compares with the normal result of a private appraisal?
We do not use the private appraisals for this value.
Okay, so if a homeowner attempts to, or were to have an appraisal done and it were to deviate from the auditor's value, that's not taking into consideration?
No, this is just based on the auditor's appraised values.
Okay. And you said that the cost for drainage and new developments from construction of $3,700, is that just Franklin County?
Those, yes.
Okay.
Those are average based on new subdivisions built in Franklin County.
And how did you, I guess, how did you arrive at that figure? How do you know what the average, or I guess, even in the aggregate, what the construction costs are for that project? Are those on file somewhere?
Yes, so when when new subdivisions in the unincorporated areas of Franklin County are built, they go through a similar petition process, and so we receive the construction costs for drainage when those subdivisions go through. So we base it off of what we receive from the subdivisions.
Okay. And it sounded like you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you are not reaching any determination on property values. In other words, the engineer is not presenting any opinion as to whether this ditch improvement would increase or decrease property values.
We, aside from the appraised values, we don't have indications of property values.
Okay, so you have the appraised value, but that's a snapshot of what they are now. But you don't know how this will affect property values if this were to proceed.
No.
Okay. One, okay. Permission to approach?
For what reason?
Okay.
Okay.
Me?
Yeah, I've got something I'd like to show you.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Just handed the witness a packet, which I believe has also already been submitted into the record, of responses from affected property owners that were listed on the petition. What I'd like to do is go over these and I guess ask you how they compare with the findings in your report. There is a statement that says other benefits that are commonly perceived as a result of drainage improvements focus on quality of life and positive neighborhood perception. Communities that have planned and maintained stormwater drainage infrastructures generally have higher resale values than communities that are known to have a history of drainage problems for flooding. And I think we just established that that's outside of your knowledge or the engineer's knowledge. But in terms of the benefits, we look at this first response from the Edelmans at 7703 Havens Court West.
So right now, you're referencing documents that haven't been established or put in to, all we have is that they were submitted. We don't have a foundation for them, and now you're questioning a witness that has no idea the veracity or who sent them. So I suggest maybe you begin your hearing process of putting those into the record, and if you want to address questions regarding those, you can do it at that time.
Well, the statute does allow for comments to be made in writing, and I would submit that that's what these are, comments that have been submitted in
Do you
writing.
intend to go through each one of those?
I think it's necessary because we have to look at each property.
Do you want to go through each one of those, and we have all these people here who want to speak? Sorry. We want to go through each one of those right now, and we have all these people here who want to speak, we have people online who want to speak, but you want to go through each one of those documents and question her on each one of those documents that she has no idea what's on each one of those documents, but you want to take the time to go through each one of those documents right now. Right now.
I'd like to, I think it's
But she
necessary.
has no idea what's on any of those documents.
Well, I didn't know what was in the preliminary report until 15 minutes
I
ago.
understand. I understand. I'm just, you do this however you want to do this, but.
I
this is-
believe-
This is,
Commissioners, I believe we can maybe address this in the manner that, that may be more simplistic, is allow council to admit those documents into evidence for your consideration. They have been sent, but they have not yet been admitted as part of this hearing process. and then allow for the engineer's office, if they have any comments regarding those documents, to present testimony. We want to be courteous to the residents who want to provide testimony, and that's our goal here.
I guess I would say that, let me be as clear as I can without being, this Board of Commissioners is trying to be as perfectly helpful as we can to your clients in spite of your efforts. And I should say no more. I'm certain that my counsel is telling me, is probably giving me. You do however you want to do this. Go ahead, Commissioner.
President O'Grady, I was just going to say that, and maybe this is a question for the prosecutor. I believe that the engineer's office, based on a lot of the line of questioning, has to follow the guidelines of, as set forth in the Ohio Revised Code. How property is evaluated, how we, use the appraisal. I mean, all of those things, they follow what to me is outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. Am I wrong by that, or do we have some discretion that we can utilize when reviewing, or the engineer's office? It seems to me that they pretty much just follow what is given to us by the legislature.
They indeed do follow the statutory process in terms of bringing this first hearing ditch process before you. And in that, you have to make a determination based on the elements of the statutory process which you have in front of you, and that's based on the testimony. The engineer's office today has testified in order to make those elements and for you to make those findings. I believe counsel is attempting a cross-examination of this witness in order to determine that those elements have not been met. And that is the purpose of his testimony, if I'm correct.
That's correct. And I will say that nothing that I'm doing today is not intended to serve the best interest of my client, which is the association. And so I'm hearing the commissioners, and I understand. But I as much as these are important because these are individual responses from roughly 141 separate individuals. And there aren't duplicates, but sometimes there are responses from a husband and wife, say from the same property owner. What's pertinent about these responses is that every single one of these folks say that their property will not benefit and that the cost will exceed the value to them. And these are people from within the watershed district. They also asked this Board of Commissioners to dismiss this petition, and my questions to the engineer were going to be focused on, for each of these individuals who will each end up having to pay if this were to move forward, is it your contention that in fact the benefits will exceed the cost?
We can go through every property individually, but at this point, we have not done a schedule assessment, and we do not know the cost per parcel. So we cannot determine a cost or benefit analysis per parcel at this time because that is not the appropriate time to do so.
Well, and we're not simply looking at the financial aspect of the assessments. I understand that the assessments haven't been calculated or apportioned or anything. We're talking about the benefits in totality. They don't see the need for this at all. And they believe that whatever cost they'll be saddled with is going to exceed the benefits.
One thing
I want to make clear of the three elements that are in front of you, and whether or not this line of questioning is absolutely necessary, and we still have the landowners to address. What the engineer's office has attempted through testimony to present is that the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements are necessary, that the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements are conducive to the public welfare, and that it's reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements will outweigh its cost. That is the beginning of moving. If this goes forward, those elements have to be met in order to proceed to the second part of this hearing. And I want to allow Mr. Soulis to provide his testimony as well regarding this.
Yes, Commissioners, what I was just going to add, and I do believe this was submitted to the clerk, correct?
They were, yes.
Yeah.
That's correct. I received those, and they have been disseminated to the joint board.
Okay. So essentially, commissioners, what you have are statements of affected property owners, and it's just property owners that have all signed, all of these individuals have signed a letter believing that their property will not benefit, the cost will exceed the value. If these get admitted into the record, I think that's perfectly fine. So you have the written statement, which is permitted under statute, of property owners who believe that without any explication, that they don't believe that their property will, that the benefit will exceed the cost, and that's perfectly fine testimony to receive. As Abby had indicated, our office has not done at this stage an individual determination on any property. So it would be pointless testimony for us to address each one of these. They are already submitted to you and can be made part of the record upon motion by council, and that would certainly be appropriate.
I will make that motion, commissioners, that they be made part of the record. And I'd like to further address this subject, if I may.
To be clear, I just want to make sure that we are still on the examination of this witness before moving to your presentation and the landowner's testimony. So is that to this witness right now, either witness from the engineer's office? Or are we concluding
Well,
with
let
this witness?
me then put it this way. Do you know whether for each of these properties owners, the benefit will exceed the cost? Do you know, can you answer that question with respect to any of these?
At this time, we do not have costs per parcel, so we cannot determine if the benefit will exceed the cost.
And you understand that's your burden of proof here, that it's up to the petitioner to prove that element, that the benefit exceeds the cost. That's a requirement of the law. You understand that?
That the overall benefits will exceed the overall cost.
Can I interject? Because I feel like, one, it would be speculative at this point in time because we are in the first hearing, and that if we were to move forward and go to the second hearing, that there would be more detailed plans, specifications, estimated project costs, and a schedule of assessments would be prepared, and a more detailed benefit versus cost analysis would be provided at that time. And so therefore, anything that you ask her about the properties or individual properties on whether the land would be benefited or not would be speculative on her part. Now, I could be wrong, but I just feel like it's unfair questioning when we have not moved. We're still at the first part. In order to get to whether is the cost-benefit analysis, we need to move past this part first.
That's correct. For the more specific piece, there is an element of that has to be provided, that there's a reasonable certainty that the benefits of the proposed petition improvements will outweigh the cost. But that is merely a reasonable expectation.
Okay. And then I guess since he has entered into, and I'll let him finish his question, but since these statements have been entered into the record with the, I'm sorry.
They have been provided,
Oh, provided.
but you will be moving toward, based on council's request, moving toward admitting them into evidence
I'll let him
after a
do that
motion
then.
in a second.
I'll let him do that then. Well, he made the motion, but that goes no second. Right, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so before we do move forward, council, would you like to make a motion, your motion? Well, okay. Are you ready to move forward with your case now at this time?
Well, we did make the motion
Okay.
to admit these as evidence.
Okay. Is there a second to the council's motion? But before we do that, again, I just want to be clear that you're finished with the examination of these witnesses and you're ready to move on to your case now. That way we can swear you in, admit this into evidence. Is that correct, Ms. Hummer? Okay.
What do we,
I don't think I have any more questions. No, I don't have any more questions at this point.
So at this time, we would need the joint board to make a motion to admit the evidence that opposing legal counsel has made, which would need to be followed by a second. Again, are we able to do that, Ms. Hummer, before the conclusion of the
I
examination of
think
this
you're
witness?
finished with,
I believe that's the case, yes.
okay.
So would you like
So
to
we are now in their case, and you are making, you're requesting a motion be made by the board to admit the letters that were previously submitted as part of the record.
Correct.
Commissioners, this was submitted via email to the joint board. As we received all of these letters throughout this process, it was actually around the time of the first viewing that you received these letters. So while they're collecting themselves, if I could have, would you like me to swear these witnesses in, Prosecutor Hummer? Okay.
I'm sorry, we have a motion pending, don't we?
Yes,
No.
I was trying to provide the joint board a time to make that motion, since the motion does have to come from the joint board. So,
you're requesting us to make a
correct.
I should have said request.
Okay, so let's move forward. Is there a motion from this joint board to admit the evidence that opposing counsel has requested of you?
Right, I move to accept the letters submitted into the evidence on behalf of the residents, which are letters of their position on the property. That's the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady? Commissioner Bubb?
Yes.
Thank you. The letters have been entered into evidence of this proceeding. At this time, we can hear from landowners and their counsel. For each person providing testimony, I will have to swear you in under oath. You will need to state your first and last name, spell it for the transcriber in the back of the room here, and also, if you are virtual, to appear on camera when you are doing so. We will alternate between somebody testifying in person and online. If you are virtual, I do need you to raise your hand, and I will call on you accordingly with your camera on. And so at this time, I would like to have the first person, residents, please rise if you would like to testify in this room. I will start with somebody in the room. Okay, sir, I saw you first. Would you please approach the podium? If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your first and last name and address or parcel number into the record.
My first name is Sean, S-E-A-N. My last name is Saccoccio, S-A-C-C-O-C-I-O. I live at 8179 Kessig's Way. This is within Colts Neck.
Thank you. You may proceed.
I sent an email to the board on the 23rd of October. I did not receive confirmation that it was accepted, so I'm curious whether any of you recollect receiving it. No?
Sir, we do not have the exact letter. I don't believe the joint board would have your name or letter right in front of them, but all letters received by this joint board are processed through them. They've been given to them electronically.
Okay, well, I'd like to at least note that it's there. It's only one page, and I'd like to just summarize it briefly. It's kind of a story. Backing up a step, I'm an electrical engineer. I'm a professional engineer. And I currently work at a chemical abstract service. I have a dog, and we walk him regularly in all kinds of weather. So over the past 6 years since we've moved into Colts Neck, we've been walking him multiple times a day, and I get to see where the water goes. And so in reviewing this VS study which was done, and which much of the improvements are based upon. I was looking at how, I'm going to try to hold up a picture here. This is the diagram. Oops, this is the diagram of the coal ditch project area. My home is on the northern edge of this blue area, and there is only one way for water to flow from the northern properties down through the northern branch of the coal ditch, according to the study. But having walked back and forth over Colts Neck over and over, there's one culvert that goes under Colts Neck, and it does not flow southward, it flows northward. So this is really in support of what Abby and Nick have been saying, that the study will need to be verified and validated. But as it was done by the consultant, the VS engineers, those properties that are north of Colts Neck have no way of delivering water to the coal ditch. And because of that, one of the project areas, which I think is project number 5, is, in my eyes, not needed. The flow of water is just not there. We've been living there for 6 years. I've never seen that part of Cobtail overcrest. I've never seen it flood. There's been one occasion where the Jefferson Water and Township water main broke, and that produced some flooding. So bottom line there is that the study needs to be validated, and I think that some of the costs are going to be reduced. The second thing that I wanted to make, the second point that I wanted to make in this letter was that in terms of building codes, in terms of construction projects, there are requirements that you have to meet. There's deed restrictions. There's I'll just say requirements. When the developer put together Colts Neck and built the community, there was a set of requirements for how big the retention ponds had to be and what the drainage rates had to be. And 35 years ago, he met those, or they met those requirements. Now, we haven't changed the community. It hasn't grown or been altered in any way with respect to drainage. And we're being asked to, or forced to, improve the situation. So from a building code perspective, this seems like a grandfathering issue where the requirements have changed over time, and normally you don't have to update work that was done according to the requirements at that time. But now we're being asked to do that update. So it seems reversed to me. So those were the 2 points that I had in my letter. I've been walking the area. There are some tweaks that need to be made to the project estimate, and I somehow think that the changing requirements is something that we should be grandfathered against, that the developer met the requirement, met the spec, and now things are different, and we're being asked to go back and fix things when we met the spec. So, sorry for being a little nervous, but I am.
It's okay.
Thank you for providing your testimony.
All right.
Are there questions by opposing counsel or the joint board at this time? If you could turn your microphone on. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one question. I was asking the Franklin County engineer earlier about feasibility, and you mentioned water flow. Would that affect the feasibility of this project?
What I observed was that there are a bunch of properties that can't possibly be contributing to the coal ditch. They contribute to the Swisher Creek watershed. And so feasibility is really, it's kind of out of scope here. You're asking, does this change the feasibility of the coal ditch project? And I'm saying it's not, what I'm pointing to is not even part of the coal ditch. This is the Swisher Creek watershed.
Okay. And just the second point would be a request that his letter be admitted to the record.
I'm just all the way confused now about this process, but because the witnesses are now, we moved from, is now the witnesses have the floor? Oh, okay. But he's not asking for a motion. He's asking for another motion.
While they are discussing some matters with the prosecutor at this time, I do want to recognize folks online virtually. I do see that your hands are raised. We will get to you. I will call on you in the order in which I've seen your hands raised, and at that point, I will call on you by name. Thank you. Commissioners, was there a question? Okay. Okay.
I think, counsel, one of the,
Did you get your question answered?
I did, thank you. And I'd also just requested that his letter be admitted to the record.
I think one of the concerns is that if each person is merely coming up and saying
Yeah.
what is already contained in the letter, I believe that the Board of Commissioners would like at least, we have their testimony by virtue of that letter, and if it's just a repeat of that, they have it.
My letter was not among that group. Mine was sent directly to.
I
your
understand,
group.
and I apologize. So, Janine, is there any reason why or any issue with us having all the letters that have been received by the Board of Commissioners added to the record?
They have been added by virtue of the motion, so they are part of the evidence
So
received.
your letter is part of the record?
No, we did not
Sir.
present his letter
He sent a letter to the Board of Commissioners,
directly.
directly to the Board of Commissioners.
Just to
Not one of
prevent
those-
confusion on the floor.
Not one of those, but he did send a letter to the Board of Commissioners, and so we have added all the letters on this issue sent to the Board of Commissioners, entered into the record. That's the point that I was trying to make. Not one of those letters. Those letters also have been added to the record. So all the letters, including, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Mr. Sicosio.
Mr.
Sean.
Sicosio, including Mr. Sicosio's letter, all the letters have been added to the record.
I apologize, the confusion might have been on our point because we had sent these letters earlier and I thought we had to move to have them admitted, so that's why. As long as they're in the record, we're good.
And I apologize for my frustration in this entire issue, because, well, oh, forget it. No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't, because I don't want to upset my legal counsel. I know, but I don't want to.
So before we move forward to the following witnesses that are able to speak, Commissioners, are we finished with Mr. Sicosio's testimony at this time?
We are.
Okay.
We are.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
providing your testimony.
Thank
But
you for the
to
opportunity.
reiterate- I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Sicosio. To reiterate, Assistant Prosecutor Hummer's point, if you are, in the interest of time, not that we don't have all the time in the world, we do, or we can make as much time as necessary for this, but if you're simply coming up to reiterate what is in your letter, whether it's included in the packet or in a letter that you have sent to the Board of Commissioners, which is also in the record, that's not necessary because it's in the record and we've all received it, we've all reviewed it. So that's not necessary to do. And I apologize. I'm just very frustrated. I apologize, sir. I'm just very frustrated with you today.
Paul, it's been a long day.
Because as good a job as you're doing being an attorney, you're doing a poor job representing your clients today. You just are. Your clients are all here. They're here, and I have to say this, you're just doing a poor
Commissioner
job.
Brady, may I
Please.
And sir, if you could speak into the microphone, I do apologize. It'll just help our transcriber. Thank you.
Not that you're a bad lawyer, you're not. You're just-
I'm Dick Rogovan.
Thanks,
And I sympathize with, you've got the hot seat, you're sitting there, and you would like to get through this and
It's
give
not about getting
everybody
through it.
their due. And I just want to emphasize that these people have been here since 11 o'clock.
I understand.
This hearing started 2 hours later.
I understand.
So had it started earlier, and that was obviously beyond your control, had it started earlier, they would have been out of here already. So without further ado, let's get them up
This-
there.
Mr. Rogovan, this isn't about the time. This is about, council's inability to read and understand the interests of, what's happening here. This is, we are very representative of the community. We are interested in seeing the right thing happen here. We are interested in your clients and their interests. There's, what is it, 100 and how many? 118 according to the engineer's office, but I don't know how many folks have said that they're interested, there's only a couple of people who want to see this move on. We're trying to get through this and do what needs to be done because the statute requires us to do it. We're trying to get through it because we have to. Your clients don't want this, just let us get through it. I'm trying not to say what I shouldn't say so that legal counsel doesn't get upset with me. But we're
Yeah,
maybe somebody else could say it better than me without,
I
without
wanna-
upsetting legal counsel, but just let us get through this. And it's not about the time, it's about, represent, anyway.
we want to, so I want to just be clear to the residents, because I know that there has been made reference two times or three times about us getting started late. We had other business that we had to take care of. Let's be clear, though. We honored your motion, your ask for continuance. We were ready to go forward when it was originally scheduled. You asked for a continuance, we granted that. But we had a statutory deadline that we had to meet. And so we had other business that we had to take care of. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Definitely want to hear from the residents who submitted letters, whether through the packet or individually, who want to be heard and have more to add, outside of what was in the letters that were submitted. And so, and you can ask, it's the quasi judicial hearing. If you have questions, it's just going to belabor it. But everybody who's here who wants to be heard, who have additional testimony outside of these letters, should be able to be heard.
I agree.
So,
And if I could just respond to, I'd just like to be clear. We appreciate the continuance that was granted, and that continuance was granted so that we could prepare. And we're prepared today to move forward, and that was necessary. Everything that I'm doing right now and that my co-counsel is doing as well is a matter of creating a record. If and when this gets appealed, a judge will look at the record. We're stuck with what happens here today. I would not be serving my client if I walked out of here leaving something on the table. My client's interests are solely what I'm looking at. And I understand this is a long process. It's a little bit different than most hearings, but, as I think everybody's in the mood to do, let's just get through this.
Thank you very much. If the joint board is okay and council is ready, I will move to the next witness.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Scott, you will be up first. If you could please put your camera on. Okay. And if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your first and last name and spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
My first name is Scott. My last name is Shively, Shively. I represent Grace Fellowship Church at 3600 North Wagner Road in Blacklick. And I am the facilities engineer for all of our campuses. I appreciate you all giving us the opportunity to speak. I'm primarily here because I feel that the church's property, if you look at the map and you look at any kind of topographic maps, which we have some because the building that is there wasn't built there about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't believe our property has any impact whatsoever on the Coal Ditch watershed. All of our property, or the water that hits our property, flows south into a retention pond, which then pops off into the drainage ditch along Wagner Road and flows south. So again, whether this petition should be agreed to or not agreed to, from our perspective, it has no benefit to us, and we don't believe that we have any impact to the coal watershed, or the Coal Ditch watershed. And I'm not sure what we need to do as an entity to remove ourselves from this, but at this time, our position is that we have no impact on the Coal Ditch watershed, and we will receive absolutely zero benefit from any of this work.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel at this time? Thank you very much, Scott. We appreciate your testimony. Next, we will move to the next person in the room. Sir, if you'd like to come up. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Please state your full name, spell it, as well as your address and parcel number.
Joe Eiler, E-I-L-E-R, 3939 North Wagner Road.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, so when Abby showed the video of the flooding, the first house they showed, and it was really compelling on the, was when he had that 5 inches of rain, and it was 2 years ago. And I got calls from my neighbors, and they were like, I'm really worried about your house. And it was like, oh my God, I was at work, I was freaking out. But anyway, I got home, and thank God we didn't have a drop of water in our basement or anything. And, but anyway, so let me slow down a minute. So across from my house, the Franklin County had installed a crossover pipe from the east side of the road, the west side of the road. And at that point, there was an ag field. It was a soybean field. It was before Jefferson Manor was built. And so anyway, what had happened during that biblical rain, the ag field filled up the ditch on the east side of the road, and we just found out about 2 weeks ago that pipe underneath my neighbor's property was plugged up. But anyway, it blew all that water across Wagner Road, all around my house, and it was scary. But anyway, earlier this spring, I worked with Franklin County Engineering, and they came out, and we've looked at everything. And 2 weeks ago, they pulled out 6-foot tree roots in front of my neighbor's property. And matter of fact, yesterday they came back and they're redoing all this, and like, this problem's going to go away. The other thing is, you had 100 acres that was sold. That soybean field is now Jefferson Manor. And over the last 2 years, so at one point the Jefferson Manor, or the Coal Ditch project, was 900 acres. Jefferson Manor is 100 acres, which represented 11% of that, this job scope. But over the last 2 years, they've had excavators, pans, they put 3 retention ponds in. They've totally changed the whole lay of the land. And there's no one here that can tell us anything like if they've made it better or they've made it worse. So that's very, very important. The other thing I wanted to say was on Wagner Road, north of McCowan, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but the water from halfway between like McGowan running south, you would think that that water would run north to Swisher Creek, where it doesn't, and it runs south towards McGowan and Coal Ditch. And it's like that, to fix this, it's like grading 101 on just the ditch on Wagner Road. And this, you think about this, if you could just change that, you could take a significant amount of pressure off the north end of Coal Ditch. But other than that, the only other thing I wanted to say was, I've worked with Scott Phillips and Donnie Murphy with Franklin County, and they were really good dudes, and I think I'm going to have a really good result. But I don't think we need this at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions by opposing counsel or the joint board for this witness?
I just had one for the witness. He said something that I'd like to
Okay.
clarify on if I could.
Sir, if you could come back up to the podium, please.
Thank you for your comments. I don't know if I heard you correctly or not. Did you say that your property was the property in the video with that water?
It was.
Okay. And that video was taken at the time that the drain was plugged up?
It was.
And it was taken at a time when there were tree roots in the drain?
Yes, sir.
And those have been removed?
Yes, sir.
Have you had any issues since then?
Well, they fixed the tree roots 2 weeks ago, and then yesterday, they've installed probably 60 or 80 foot of pipe, and they're redoing that ditch on the east side of the road from me.
And when you say they, are you talking about the county or the township?
County.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, next we will be moving to Jenny Evans. If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you, and if you could please state your name and spell it, as well as your address and parcel number.
My name is Virginia Evans, Virginia, and last name is Evans. I live at 2120 Havens Court East, and I don't know my parcel number.
That's sufficient, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. And I have prepared a written statement because I don't want to fumble and bumble and hem and haw with my words. So I apologize for reading. I did write this, and I'll share it with you now. At one of the meetings we attended at the Jefferson Township Fire Department, a question was asked as to why the township trustees filed the request with Franklin County to have them evaluate the flooding issues in the Coal Ditch watershed. Trustee Richard Coulter from Jefferson Township responded that he has served as a trustee for many years, and it seems that every year they receive complaints about flooding. A follow-up question was asked as to how many complaints were received and by whom. I was glad that question was asked because my thoughts were specifically how many complaints have been received and how many different homeowners filed those complaints. Trustee Coulter responded that he couldn't give specific numbers. He said the only way to do that would be to go back through all of the meeting minutes to find that information. With all due respect to him and to the trustees and to their desire to meet the needs of residents, I have real concerns about speaking in generalities when we're considering a $3 million project that we as the residents will be responsible for paying for. In addition to the trustees, there were only 2 other residents that signed onto the petition. Of the 411 residents, which is the number we were given at that meeting, now I'm hearing the number 304, so I'm a little confused. But anyway, of all the residents, are there only 2 flooding concerns? Are they the ones that bring concerns to the trustees every year? We have no way of knowing that information. Trustee Calder also asked how the township would pay for their portion of the coal ditch project. His answer was that taxes are the only source of income in the township. So in addition to footing our portion of the $3 million bill, we'll be facing higher taxes. And at the end of the meeting, we were told we would also be charged an annual maintenance fee to maintain the ditch in perpetuity. In addition, one of the petition signers lives at the northeast corner of Wagner and Havens Road. At that meeting I referenced earlier, a neighbor who lives next door to that homeowner said twice during the meeting that the water they get from heavy rain does not come from Coal Ditch, but rather flows westward down Havens Road. This comment was said more of an aside and wasn't spoken loud enough for the panel to hear, so no response was given. However, as I thought about it later, I would like to know whether the engineers have talked to and specifically assessed what exactly happens during heavy rains on the property that floods. Have there been any types of solutions suggested or implemented on around those specific properties to alleviate their flooding issues? Or are we just assuming that we need a complete overhaul of the entire watershed to alleviate a few issues? In summary, it seems to me that the entire presentation at the fire station dealt in generalities. As an aside, my husband is on this Zoom call with me, and he would like to speak as well. He's got some other concerns that he'll share. Neither the engineer's office nor the township provided specific facts related to Jefferson Township and this project. I ask that you please review the PowerPoint specifically to find specific data as compared to overall general studies, such as the OSU study on the agricultural benefits. And most importantly, I urge you as county commissioners to seek more factual information as to the specific number of properties that have flooding concerns before you give your approval to spend $3 million plus of the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if your husband would like to provide his testimony, I can swear him in as well right now.
All right.
If you could raise your right hand. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it as well as your address.
J. Evans, Jayevans, 2120, Havens Court East, Black Lick.
Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Okay, I will be real short and sweet. I don't write things out ahead of time. But I would just like to address the benefits versus cost section of the report. As our friend from Coltsneck has already done, the improved agricultural yields are just should be taken off. I mean, it's very loosely connected to an Ohio State study that shows there's greater corn and soybean yields. It cannot be proved that anybody that is growing crops in the watershed is going to get higher yields. And if they do, the greater issue is, why should we pay for it? I mean, they will receive greater profits. That's just should not be a part of the benefits here. Increased value of residential properties because new builders spend $3,700 on drainage, adequate drainage infrastructure. That sounds like the typical amount that a builder would spend to put in pipes, for drainage. But this proposal is implying that would be applied to every property would have to redo their drainage because of the cold ditch problems. That's just not the case. So, I would ask the commissioners, please just take a look at this as if somebody's making a proposal to your company or to your residents, and if it's really worth it. The home sewage treatment systems, there's some kind of loose implication that if somebody has a sewage system, that inadequate drainage is going to deteriorate it, and they're all going to have to replace their sewage system. There's no evidence of that. There's no strong evidence of that at all. There's no evidence of any benefit. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
Thank you very much for providing your testimony. Are there any questions by opposing counsel or the joint board at this time for this witness?
I want to make sure before we proceed, Brittany, we are not voting today to, we're just voting today on whether or not to proceed. So there's, that we're not,
Mr. President, this is the first hearing.
Exactly.
And this
It's
is
the
for
first-
the plans, designs,
That's
and
right.
specifications.
So I want to make sure we're clear on that, number one. And then number two, we've already indicated that we are not placing an assessment on anybody's property today. We already indicated that we're not going to assess anybody regardless of what happens today. So I want to make sure that, we restated both of those points so that everybody understands, both in the room and those folks virtually, that nobody's going to get assessed for anything based on any decision that's made today, and that we're not voting today as to whether or not this is simply the first hearing. So I want to make sure there's no confusion over those issues. So anyway, go ahead, Brittany.
I should have said that I did pick up earlier that there is an expectation garnered from this meeting that benefits will exceed costs. I believe one of you stated that, and that's kind of a qualifier for moving forward. So in that vein, that's why I wanted to bring these things out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. Appreciate your time. If the next person in the room would like to provide testimony, you can come up to the podium. And if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And if you could please state your first and last name, spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
Barbara, Barbara, Held, Held, as in David. I live at 2229 Cobtail Way, Blacklick, Ohio. Our home sits on the cross street of Cobtail and Creek Hollow, so I am surrounded on both sides. And I'm giving testimony that's a little bit different than what other people have given. Of course, I do not want this. I don't see any benefit. I do see harm. And in the way of harm, part of our property was designated as a wildlife preserve. Some of the things that we see frequently. And these first things are protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty. The great horned owl, now I have to quantify that. It has not been seen since we lost 20% of our woods with the emerald ash borer and the Dutch elm disease. But great horned owl, a junior bald eagle earlier this year, blue-winged teal duck, hummingbirds. Those are all protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty. We also see the great blue heron, the pileated woodpecker, the red-headed woodpecker, which is of concern and on several watch lists. Bats, which are protected by federal law. Hawks, Canadian geese, mallard ducks, 200 at a time. Every native woodland bird at the Columbus Zoo resides in our wildlife preserve. Flying squirrels, which are protected. red fox, which are protected, deer up to 3 dozen prior to heavy snowfalls. That's not normal. We see probably 20 to 30 deer throughout the night, but not all 30 at one time. Coyotes, raccoons, skunks, turtles, possum, monarch butterflies, which are in the endangered red list, many varieties of bees, and praying mantis. Dragonflies, which are considered to be at a 16% risk of extinction globally due to the destruction of their wetland habitat, water pollution, and climate change. I say this because when they put in the culvert that goes underneath the road, they will change the way the waters flowed from the retaining pond across the way. That feeds these creatures, if you will. It will also kill several of our trees. We lost trees. I've planted trees. We've been there for 22 years. We have had flooding. Yes, we've had flooding. My basement has never been flooded. The road has been closed for an hour or two at a time. There are other ways to get in and out. There is no real concern. The flooding doesn't last for days, hours maybe. That's it. And that's it, unless there was something else you wanted me to address. You had some questions.
I do just have a couple follow-up questions. Thank you for being here today. I just want to confirm that you live in the Colts Neck subdivision, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And how long have you lived at your home?
We're in our 22nd year.
Okay. Where did you live prior to your current residence?
Harrison Pond. It's actually in Gahanna. It has a New Albany address.
Okay. And how, I guess, let's just stick with, since you purchased your home, you talked about this a little bit. What type of issues have you encountered with flooding and water issues?
Really, none. I mean, as I said the other day, when we had major flooding on the news a year or 2 years ago, where they were closing down streets all over the city, we did have an issue that one day. I've never seen anything like that one day. But they had closed roads all over the city. That's the only time.
Okay. And your property, again, is at the corner of,
Creek Hollow and Cobb Tailway.
and the proposal is to re-divert water off of your property, correct?
Yes, I will lose many trees. This is what sustains that wildlife.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for providing your testimony. At this time, because we do have more folks in person, I see your hand, Mr. Hall. I'm going to take one more person in the room here, and then we will get to you. Sir, if you'd like to approach the podium. Okay, and if you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your first and last name, spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
First name Joe, last name Gerhart, Gerhart. I'm actually the Service Department Superintendent for Jefferson Township. My shop is at 6620 Havens Corners Road. I've been in the township since '92, so over the 30-plus years, I've actually have witnessed and saw flooding almost every year. A lot of it in Colts Neck area, some on Havens, some out on Dixon, some on McCone as well, which is a township road that we maintain. So I feel this is a project that is needed, mainly because the township roads do flood. To me, that's a public safety issue because you cannot get through at a certain time, and even fire EMS or the law enforcement can actually get through these areas at a certain time. So I basically just in support of this project, and I think something needs to be done to create a adequate outlet for our storm systems and the other areas of the township road, and along with Franklin County engineers. Again, I've been here since '92. And it seems that it's been getting worse year after year after year, plus the weather patterns have changed, where we're actually getting more rain and more wetness than we've had in the past. So
Thank you very much, sir.
just wanted to,
What did you say you do again at the?
I'm the superintendent for Jefferson Township for the service department, the
Okay.
road department.
For the road department?
I've been a superintendent since 2001, but been at the township since 92, and actually worked for the township back in 83 and 84 prior to that. So I've seen a lot of change, seen a lot of development, and like I said, over time, weather patterns have changed, has increased problems with drainage on township roads and the segment of county roads.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So the first lady that read her statement, I can't remember her name, I apologize.
Jeannie Evans, I believe.
So when she was referencing a meeting at the township, and referencing the township, one of the township trustees getting complaints about the flooding, would you be aware of, not who's complaining, but that, I guess would you be one of the people who would go out and look at where people are making complaints and looking at the road?
I wouldn't think there'd be for my recollection, to remember, I don't think we've actually received a lot of complaints. I think a lot of them just kind of took it as, this is what happens. And then, the roads do flood. Sometimes they recede a little bit quicker than other days. But as far as records of how many people complaints, what that is, I can't say I've actually received
Okay.
a large amount, let's put it that way. To us, it's almost a normal practice where we gotta go out and put out high water signs. We gotta block a road off, because we know those areas are problematic for the flooding.
Okay.
So it's
Thank you.
almost a normal thing for us.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions by the joint board or opposing counsel for this witness?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. So you just stated that you have not received many complaints?
I can't remember receiving, in my office, as far as the road department side of things. There might have been some in the past that related maybe to something different. Drainage issues like, drain ain't working here or whatever, that type of deal.
And you're referring to your office as the road department. Do you also handle issues with the stormwater system as well? The ditch and?
Within the right-of-way and the certain easement areas of the township roads itself.
Okay, so if it's off on private property, not in the right of way, you're not going to handle that
If private
situation?
property, I usually, I go out and get my advice. If it's on private property, I even go out and at least meet with them. But there has been instances where it's actually on private property, not so much out in the road right-of-way area in the drainage ditch.
Gotcha, okay. So the township does play a role then in maintaining, repairing, and replacing parts of the
Yes.
ditch then if it's in the?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to. As part of your duties, do you compile annual reports about the work done by the township?
Yes.
Okay. And I've just provided you with, well, I guess before we go there, what are these annual reports and what are their purpose?
It's through Franklin County. It's a township annual report that we have to put together, present, and give to Franklin County Soil and Water District on any storm improvements, any storm cleaning, any repairs that we've done within a year period. We're getting ready to do another annual report for 23 that's due in 24.
Okay. Just to move a little quickly and condense this, could you look at the packets that I just handed you and tell us what those are?
These ones here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. It's Franklin County Township Annual Reporting. It's a MS4 permit term from 9/11/2014 to 9/11/2019. And it's just it's a report that we have to fill out as far as what we've done for storm improvements, repairs, and also how much salt we use, how we treat roads. I'm just trying to narrow it down to where, and then recycle units, you know, how we do recycle certain items. Did we participate in any training as far as the department itself? And then how we keep reports as far as handwritten reports.
So these reports are made by your office, correct?
These are actually made by myself.
Oh, yourself? Okay, all right. So
I
you can
actually generate these, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
generate these throughout the season. My crew does some repairs, and then we got separate forms. We fill out what we've done, what location, and then that's transmitted over into these annual reports.
And the reports that you have are for years 2019, 2020, 21, and 22, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it looks like.
And just for the record, I want to mention that the joint board does not have what you're speaking of in front of you. And so, but just for the record, could you please state what these reports are again from 2019, I heard? They're-
Yes, and I'll move to have these admitted. They're from 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And they're the annual reports that the township puts out pertaining to certain activities.
Thank you very much.
So, and we can look at these collectively, because I think they're all structured the same way. There is a section of these reports, MCM number 6.2, and it says, did you maintain or clean your stormwater pipes, catch basins, or ditches in 2019? Please provide specific information as to what was maintained or repaired along with dates. And then, for instance, 2019, you list 3 separate, looks like projects. 2020, you have 6. 2021, you have 4. And then 2022, you have 5. And we don't have to go through those individually, but the question that I have is that the township is capable of repairing and maintaining certain aspects of the ditch, correct?
To a limited state. If it's beyond our means, then we either hire somebody or the Franklin County engineers will assist us in certain improvements.
Okay. And this has worked up until this point, correct? I mean, essentially, your department has been able to cure these issues through this type of work. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any idea what the costs were to perform this type of work?
That I do not have.
Okay.
Because we don't, when we do the individual works, when we go out and do it, we don't really, I don't want to say we don't keep track of our time, labor-wise, but a lot of it is done in-house. So it's just a matter of us going out and doing a repair. If we have to buy pipe, we buy pipe. If we have to reclaim a ditch, we just go out and set up and reclaim a ditch, and that's mainly just, hours spent.
Okay. And this relates to that, and then also that a comment that you made earlier where you said it seems it's getting worse. Have you taken any measurements, or do you have any quantifiable data that this problem is in fact getting worse?
As far as improvements, we go with what we have out there that needs improved.
Well, and I'm speaking to the flooding issues that you've raised.
No, because majority of our flooding that we have, unfortunately, is related to the cold ditch as far as an outlet for our system and through the other roads. That's where our problem is. Not so much, I don't think it's so much our system.
Mm-hmm.
It's where our system outlets, and where it has to outlet is going to cold ditch. And with that not being where it needs to be to relieve the pressure off of our system, that's what keeps backing ours up.
So was this a problem 15 years ago?
It's been a problem. My memory gets me right. Like I said, I've been here since '92, and the former superintendent that was with the supervisor at that time, we did have incidents in the township that would flood, and I would say they're in the same areas that we're still having issues with, if not getting worse, because nothing has been done with cold ditch over all these years that I know of.
Okay. And I guess to the point that I'm trying to reach is what is making this improvement necessary at this time?
As far as cold ditch improvement?
This project?
The project, if it moves forward and the improvement is done, it will actually help relieve the pressure in the drainage of our system and also the county system on one section of their road to where water can actually flow and try to limit the amount of the heavy flooding that we are currently experiencing now.
Okay. And then my last question, are you aware, have there ever been any accidents or personal injury issues that arise from the flooding that you're aware of? Has there been a car accident or anything in your 30-some-odd years from flooding?
I can't say there has, as far as being reported, but we have putting up road closed barricades where people just ignore those and drive through the high water. But as far as accidents or anybody being injured or hurt, I can't.
Okay.
I want to be clear, the documents that you presented have not been submitted to the board, is that correct?
That's correct. I was going to move to have them submitted at the end. And I don't have any further questions.
All right.
Thank you. And before,
Question, are you for or against the?
I'm for it.
You're for, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry.
I was confused there a little bit, okay, yep, thanks.
thank you very much for providing your testimony. Before we do move on to any other folks, I would like to get a count of folks in the room that would like to provide testimony that still have yet to speak.
And I'm sorry, before we do that, could I just request that these be admitted, or do you want to wait until after?
I would like to do what I'm doing
Okay,
first, and
sorry.
then, thank you very much. Okay, if you could please raise your hands.
I think I saw 3. There's one in the back.
Okay.
We have 3 online. still?
That's correct, Mr. President. So
Okay.
at this time, we are going to take a brief recess to provide our folks up here a break. So we will reconvene.
Yeah, we're going to take a break. I just want to, before we do, real quick. Yeah, Commissioner Boyce needs to take a dinner break. No, I do want to say, before, as we're getting ready to do this, we have these ditch petitions usually, once, twice a year sometimes nowadays? It seems 2-3 times a year, it seems like. It's funny, I think I was a commissioner for years before we even had a ditch petition. Now we have them 2-3 times a year. I usually tell folks, I don't know if I did this the last time we met, because this is our second time we've met, right? On the coal ditch.
That's right, Mr. President.
I grew up in the what is the Mando ditch area out in the Big Darby, the Darby watershed. And I always like to remind people that I grew up in an area that was flooded on a regular basis. And every spring and fall, pretty much, I grew up in an area that was, so I'm very familiar with this stuff and very sensitive to this kind of stuff. And I also still live in Norwich Township, in an area that, in the Ridgewood area, that is on a regular basis, gets a lot of water and has my backyard gets regularly flooded. So this is stuff that, while my 2 city dweller friends here, colleagues, don't have to deal with these things nearly as often as I do. This is stuff that I've been familiar with my entire life, and so, or most of my life. And so I always like to remind the folks that come before us that this is a very sensitive issue for me, and this is something that I'm very, very familiar with. And interestingly, it is something that we did not deal with the first several years I was a county commissioner, but over the last number of years, probably since, 2014 or 15, and since that time, we have had a number of ditch petitions, usually 2-3 of them a year. And so this is not the first time that we've dealt with this. This one is very, this is a very sensitive one for sure, but this is certainly not our first time. And so I really appreciate all of you guys being here. We will take a very short break.
We'll take a short break and reconvene at 4 p.m. in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, about
Thank
10
you very
minutes.
much.
So thank you, guys.
Is the cafeteria open?
In this meeting, we are back from recess. At this time, we will move forward with the opposing council commissioners have put forward what the last witness spoke about to admit into evidence. There are reports that are generated by him that were just handed to me, so we would need a motion to admit these into evidence.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce? Yes. Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Bubb?
Yes.
Thank you. This has been admitted into evidence. Okay, next we will hear from Kenneth Hall. Mr. Hall, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your first and last name, spell it, and state your address or parcel number.
Kenneth Hall, Hall, parcel number 170-000174. That is the farm that is along Clark State, Wagoner, and McOwen, about 95 acres. Been in the family since 1844. Wow. Couple of things I want to bring up is that we have never experienced, to my knowledge, on the farm, any flooding in what I understand is the upper part of the Coles ditch. I was told there's an upper and a lower part. And no one from the township or the county has ever notified me of any problems with the area in the subject of the ditch. And by the way, the notification we got on November 7th, 2023, which was a certified letter, we never signed it, never saw the green card, and we never got notifications of any of the other previous meetings from the township or the county. Along our farm, we're mainly doing soybean and corn. We've never seen any yield changes with respect to drainage, and the Ohio State ag folks were invited out, but not for that purpose. They were invited out to look at the woods and give us a recommendation on maintaining it properly. They were doing some studies and had some students that wanted to do it, and since we have some direct interest in Ohio State, we allowed them to do that thing. So on our farm property, I have not seen anything related to flooding, and it covers about half of McOwen going from the south to the north end. And so, west to the east end. So that's what I wanted to bring up, and that, we have just heard about this through this letter, and this is the first time I have talked to the group there, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel at this time with this witness? Okay, seeing and hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Hall, for your testimony. We will next move to the in person. If you could please come up to the podium. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do. I do. And if you could please state your first and last name, spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
My name is Stephen Bush, STEVENBUSH, at 4155 North Wagoner Road. Sorry, would you speak closer to the mic, please? I'm sorry. Again?
Yes, please.
It's not
It
on.
might have,
It's not.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
So
Thank you.
There's no need to touch the microphones for whoever comes up to testify. I control that up here, so thank you, sir. You may
Thank
proceed.
you. Stephen Bush, STEVENBUSH. My address is 4155 North Wagoner Road, Black Lake. So I am against this project. We've lived there for 16 years. We are on the corner of McOwen Road and Wagner Road. So McOwen Road dead ends into our driveway. We're the last parcel north until it cuts off. Okay, and so my neighbor to the north is not part of the watershed. I can speak about the fields across the way. Those fields are mostly farmed all the time and are kept wonderfully. I've never seen them not get stuck with a piece of machinery or anything like that. And the two projects the two areas that they X'd out are right there where I live and where those fields are. So if they're not doing those projects, it shouldn't do anything for those fields and how much water is in the fields, because they're not doing the projects. One of the things that I have to say is I understand maybe that the law is written that the people who are affected by this have to pay for the improvements, plus the maintenance of it and all that. Now, if that's a tax on us, and then we pay our taxes to Jefferson Township, which just seems to be a bit of a Jefferson Township problem, not necessarily a resident problem. Then we are in Columbus, so we are taxed by that. We're getting taxed 3 times over this one thing. Only 400 and some people are getting taxed for this out of thousands that live in the township. So we're triple having to pay for this project in comparison to the guy who lives right next door to me has nothing that he has to pay. So as for selling our house, do we have to tell the buyer there's an extra 15-year thing they have to pay for? We have to state that. And so it seems kind of weird that only 400 people have to pay for something for a township of, I don't know how many people, 1,000 people. What was the other point that I was? It just, anyways, the bottom line is we're against it, and if you look at it and there is an overwhelming amount of people who don't want this project versus people who do want this project, isn't democracy about who is the majority vote? And so I would like to ask you guys to consider there's very few people who want this and an overwhelming amount of people who don't want it. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel at this time? Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we will move to Darren and Bettine Baldwin. If you could please come on camera. Mr. Baldwin, if you could please turn your camera on.
Yep.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
very
do you
much.
see us now?
Yes, I can see you. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your first and last name and spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
Yes, this is Bettina and Darren Baldwin, spelled Baldwin, and we live at 4135 North Wagoner Road, next door to the Bushes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Yes, we just wanted to state that we are also against this. We have never experienced any of the type of flooding that's been depicted in some of the pictures today. And we have a question. Are we allowed to pose questions?
Sure.
Sure, you may use your testimony time however you'd like.
Okay. We were just curious why the few homes that you were showing on the video that have had this flooding, how long they've been having this flooding, and why other homes are not experiencing the same issues, even if they're close to Coal Ditch or within the watershed.
Who is that question directed toward?
I guess it would be the engineers.
Good afternoon. Jim Ramsey, the riparian and environmental engineer with Franklin County Engineers Office. And I would say that a lot of the houses that receive flooding and that do not receive flooding has everything to do with where they are in the landscape and how they're located. So if you're in a low-lying area or you happen to be in an area where water doesn't flow well away from there, then you're going to have flooding. There are certainly, and as with all of these petitions, there's always more properties who are in the watershed and their water drains there, but they're in upland areas, and so they don't have flooding. I think every petition that I've been involved with, there's been lots of homes that don't have flooding and a few that do. So that in itself is not uncommon. The flooding that's been going on, I don't know how long, it's probably been before my tenure here, and I started in 2008 as far as the petitioners who have filed the petitions. And then I think Joe Gearhart with the township spoke to his knowledge of working at the township and how long he's been dealing with the flooding problems throughout the township for draining the township roads.
And that leads to my follow-on question, then have any remedies been looked at that solve the problem for the properties that are flooding? Instead of saying, hey, we've got to go and do this massive big project for the benefit of just these 7 homes, were there other remedies that could just fix it for those 7 homes that would be less expensive or assessed in a different way?
Well, Joe touched on this very lightly when he spoke, but I'm glad you're asking the question. It gives a chance for me to reiterate that answer, and that the township has the ability with their funding to maintain the township road drainage. But they're filing the petition because the township road drainage outlets into Coal Ditch, and the township cannot maintain Coal Ditch because it's outside of the road right-of-way. So if Coal Ditch isn't functioning properly, there's no way that they can maintain road drainage that drains to Coal Ditch if the Coal Ditch isn't functioning properly as the outlet for that. Now, in the study that we had done previously, it did give kind of an a la carte list of different things that you could do in different areas, and Abby covered those in the project areas, and they're in the study that we can make available to you. Just emailing Abby, and she'll make it available to you.
Okay. But is there a way that some remedy could be taken just for the homes that are being subject to the flooding?
I think what you're getting at is, could we just deal with the problems that are flooding? I think we would try to do that. We wouldn't want to do a project that does more than is necessary to solve the problems, particularly in this area where you have folks who are very concerned about the look and the appeal and the disruption that would happen in a construction project. But in some cases, these are bigger. I think the whole nature of a petition, when somebody files a petition, is because the problem is bigger than they can solve on their own, and it's bigger than they can solve within their own rights. In this case, it's the township, and this problem is bigger than they can solve for their drainage outlets. And for the other homes, their flooding problem can't be solved on their property. And that's where you get to a petition. If there was an option to just solve the problem with the petitioners on their property and doing that, we wouldn't be in the petition process.
Okay, thank you. To me, it still sounds as though we're using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, is it? Is that the right expression? We remain opposed to it, and we really don't think it's fair that people who are not benefiting or, who are not experiencing any problems should be having to pay for this.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this witness from the joint board or opposing counsel?
I think that's a wonderful British holiday expression, so works for us.
Thank you very much for providing your testimony. At this time, we'll move to the next person in the room. Ma'am, if you'd like to come up. We'll have you go next, sir. Thank you.
My
If
name
you
is...
could you raise your right hand for
Okay.
me? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name and spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
Okay, my name is Julie Doctor, and last name is
Dr. D is in David, OCKTER, and my address is 7726 Havens Road. And I'm here as one of the petitioners that signed this petition. I live in a century-old home. It's one of the original homes on Havens Road for one of the members of the Havens family. So I live on an old farmhouse that's kind of high in that area. My property does not drain into Coal Ditch. The problem that I'm experiencing is that the water is running along Havens Road, and that drainage system that Joe Gerhardt was talking about, that is overwhelmed, and the water is flowing out of the drainage.
Ma'am, if I could just pause you for one moment, I do apologize. Counsel, do you want to take that call outside, or? Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Lost my train of thought. The water is coming out of the drainage system to homes to the east of me. And so the water that's coming from as far away as Licking County, it's running along the along Havens Road on the north side, and it's escaping the drainage system at 7780 Havens Road, and then it runs across my neighbor's yard, and it runs across my backyard, and then it runs into my neighbor next to me, into his yard. So it's, I think it's a Jefferson Township drainage problem, that it's causing a lot of damage to my property. And there are developments that have been done recently that are, there was one that was, there was an approval to back up this water. So it's creating a swamp on my property. And I'd like for you to go ahead and approve this petition to study the problem so that we can address the real issues and not pay for anything that, where there isn't a problem. You know, don't try to fix something that's not a problem, but fix the real problems. And I think you need to have an engineer to go ahead and study it to see what the true issues are. So.
I do stupid stuff.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Commissioner Bubb, do you have a question? Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel for this witness? Okay, thank you very much for providing your testimony. Sir, in the front row, if you'd like to come up. I can, if you're going to hand something to them, I'm happy to take it. I receive items. Sure. Okay.
Okay.
If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
You could please state your first and last name and spell it, as well as your address or parcel number.
It's Mike Held, M-I-K-E-H-E-L-D. Address is 2229 Cobtail Way, Blacklick. Barbara's my wife, in case you haven't figured that one out yet. Anyway, I just wanted to state that we've got a beautiful piece of property there, and a lot of it has to do with her and her extensive gardening and things, and we did have it certified as a wildlife preserve based on everything, and it's not just some of the bigger animals that you see around there. There's a lot of endangered species in these areas. And a lot, the butterflies, the bees, the frogs, I mean, you name it, they're back there. And I don't know if you can see, but the way the drainage works on our property is there's a township easement that comes right across our main landscaped area. It comes under the road, across, and then back out the other road into a field, and then drains out to Havens Road. Been there 22 years, and I can count on one hand the number of high water signs that the townships had to drag so terribly out to the middle of the road, and they're gone the next day. That's how fast the water goes down and moves through there. We've got a 15-acre lake here and a pond here, and it all drains into our property, runs up the side and then out to a 5 or 6 acre field across out to Havens Road and down. It flows like a champ, except when you get 5 inches of rain. A little unusual, and that happens rarely. Like I said, I've never not been able to get into my driveway, and I live right in front of this so-called high water that we get there all the time. And it's, like I said, 22 years. I wouldn't even have to take my shoes off to count that many times, but I could get them on the 2 hands that I got. But anyway, just to let you know that, and I drive all through the township. I drive all through that whole area, and when it's raining, I don't know of, yeah, I see high water once in a while sitting in somebody's front yard, but that's part of the deal when you live in Ohio and you get these heavy rains. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. I don't know whatever you do to the cold ditch thing, when you get 5 inches of rain, it's not going to stop anything. It's going to happen. So, anyway, did you have any questions for me?
Is that the end of your testimony, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate some of those things.
Okay. Are you going to request that these be admitted into the evidence, opposing counsel?
I am going to request, and Mr. Held, thank you for your testimony. I guess just so the record's clear, we are moving to add photographs. These are all photographs of your property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The landscaping and the nature easement in the back, correct?
Yep.
And the plan is to divert water off of your property.
Well, yeah, that drainage area that runs into our yard and back into our reserve area, that's going to dry up if they divert the drainage a different way.
Okay, so
to keep it from backing up when it's not backing up.
So it's your testimony that these improvements, should they proceed, will cause all of this landscaping?
Terrible damage. There's half a dozen trees that are 50 feet tall in that main part, right where that water runs, and those things will never survive if they go in and tear that all up and lose that water source.
All right, thank you. I would ask that these be admitted to the record, please.
Is there a motion to admit the pictures of nature of this witness into the record?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Thank you. Those pictures have been admitted into the evidence. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in this room or online that would like to provide testimony at this time? Okay, we have one final witness. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Please state your first and last name and spell it, as well as state your address or parcel number.
It's Teresa Bush, BUSH, 4155 North Wagner Road. I just have two things between us and freedom. Number one, the video that they showed of traveling north on Wagner Road, and it was really a lot of rain at that time. That is right in front of our house, and so I just wanted to let you know that that has never occurred other than one time in our 18 years there. And the second thing I want to make a point about is that there are only two houses that really, according to this, benefit from this. It is mostly the roads of Jefferson Township that need this or that they're petitioning for. So I'm curious about why 441 residents have to pay for roads that are used throughout the entire township. It seems like it's a Department of Transportation issue as opposed to maybe the engineers or the coal ditch or whatever that is. It's really the Jefferson Township roads that are, if you look at their studies and stuff, that area, that video I'm talking about, those two areas were stricken from being corrected. So the roads are really what we're talking about, and it's Jefferson Township roads. So I'm curious if it should be Department of Transportation that's working with the engineers as opposed to the residents of Jefferson Township taking care of roads that millions of people travel on every year. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel at this time? Okay, thank you. Ma'am, you're on the screen. Are you wanting to provide testimony?
Yes.
Okay, please provide me one moment. Okay, if you can raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do.
I do.
Please state your first and last name as well as spelling it and your address or a parcel number.
Abby Stiers, Abbie, Stiers, and I live at 2290 Old Stone Road, Blacklick.
Thank you. You may proceed.
I'm on the HOA board for Colts Neck. I'm the kind of resident architect. I review all the plans for our neighborhood and the landscape plans. And I think the biggest concern that we have as our neighborhood and in Jefferson Township in general is that we really value the trees and our landscape and these things. And being in construction for about 20 years, I see how the big equipment really devastates some of these smaller areas, and I'm really concerned about how they would be cleaning out the coal ditch and the adjacent streams. We don't really have a problem per se in Colts Neck itself. I know that there are some areas that do have larger issues with the flooding, but just wanted to give my testimony that what is being proposed as reseeding as a I guess a fix to any of the construction that would happen wouldn't be something that would put back what the properties have now. It would take many years for trees to develop back to what really creates our community and really the Jefferson Township.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by the joint board or opposing counsel for this witness?
I just have a couple questions. Thank you. Ms. Stiers, you said that you serve on the board of directors for Colts Neck as the architectural review.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a background in architecture?
Yes, I've been in architecture for 20 years and licensed for 11.
Okay. And given your residence and your service on the board for the association, you are familiar with the Colts Neck subdivision as a whole, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And would you say that the rural and natural elements are a inherent part of that community and inherent important?
Definitely. We even get emails and complaints about tree trimming in our community when someone thinks something's been trimmed back too far. So everybody values their privacy, and the natural landscape is really what helps create that for our community.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what effect the proposed project will have on the natural elements of the community?
I think the tree clearing itself that would be required to get to these ditches would be pretty devastating to specific properties. I think it's possible minor improvements that could happen, but I think the clearing of any trees is what the biggest issue would be. Also, as Mike had stated, there are some natural elements that are a little more minor that would also have a hard time recovering within any less than like a 10 to 15 year period.
Okay, and I guess just on the whole, given your experience with the community and what you've seen in the township, as well as your expertise as an architect, is it your opinion that the benefits outweigh its cost?
Yeah, the benefits, or the cost. Sorry, can you repeat it the way you said it again?
Do the cost outweigh the benefits to you of this project, in your
Yes.
opinion? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Colts Neck in general would have a great benefit at all to the cost compared to the cost of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is at this time of the hearing where, since testimony has been provided, if there is a rebuttal testimony by the engineer's office, if anybody would like to come to the podium from the engineer's office at this time.
Commissioners, we do not have a rebuttal per se, but if you have any questions for the engineer's office, we're more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Abby. So
I do have questions for the engineer. Do you mind me?
this would be clarifying questions from the
yes.
joint board at
Yep.
this time. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Just really quickly, a couple of things were brought up in the many testimonies that were given today. One, I wanted to know if it is it your opinion that if treatment isn't done, that the degradation with regards to the draining scenario will only get worse, will maintain, it will be the same, or it'll get better on its own?
My opinion is that the drainage system will continue to deteriorate. The sedimentation will continue to occur in the ditch, and it'll just continue to fill it up, so it doesn't have any flow capacity. The townships, Jefferson Township filed the petition for a road outlet, a drainage outlet for their roads, and that is Cold Ditch. So the roads will continue to outlet to Cold Ditch, but without Cold Ditch actually being maintained. We do not have the ability to maintain it, and that will just continue to fail.
Okay. My second question is, based on testimony today, there was reference to the agricultural yield changes based on potentially the improvements. So I want to make sure those numbers were projected based on, in terms of the increase of production, based on the outcome of improvements, correct? And that's estimate?
Correct. That is research from the Ohio State University Extension Office.
Okay, thank you. The third question is, there was a reference made to wildlife preservation. How does that work in the considerations for the engineering? When you look at this, and when there are preserves within there, how do you calculate that or factor that in your considerations?
So the wildlife restrictions or any sort of conservation easements all come down to the actual specifications. So we haven't gone into the details of that. However, I can tell you that for the property they have referenced, we do have a proposed project in that area. However, the improvements are not near the nature preserve or conservation area that they're mentioning. The actual improvement, it is in your Appendix C, I guess. It is sheet 7, but it actually consists of just an overflow pipe to ensure that Cobtail Way and Creek Hollow don't overtop. So we wouldn't actually be performing any sort of construction in that nature preserve, and that's the tendency of the engineer's office, is to avoid doing that.
And then, Mr. President, so I just want to make sure the process that goes forward is the process that evaluates all of these things in more detail and more accurate description. What the actions we take today, maybe this is for the prosecutor, allows for the process to go forward, that allows for these things to be truly assessed and give true or accurate assessment scenarios that might, or impact, like a preserve or something in the process. That's what the process actually entails, correct? Or
That's
no?
correct.
Okay. And then my last question, Mr. President, is what's the percentage of residents that have to sign a petition in order for it to come before us for a ditch?
Only
Is it
one resident.
And is that based on state law, Ohio Revised Code, or is
Yes.
that something county says?
It's Ohio Revised Code.
Okay, thank you.
Are there further questions?
I have a question. Commissioner, do you have any questions? No. Abby, so, and I just have the one question. So moving forward, if all of this, after the next hearing, the decision's made to move forward with this, I believe the testimony indicates there's 441 residents. Is that correct?
411.
I'm sorry, 411 residents. Obviously, those 411 residents would be assessed if the repairs were needed to be made, correct? Is there anyone else? I mean, would the township or townships, because there's multiple townships here, obviously, since we're over in Licking County as well, would the townships be assessed as well?
The townships are assessed for their portions for what they own, so they maintain the right-of-way for their township right-of-way, so they're maintained in the same, or they are assessed in the same portion that all the residents, and then as well as on the Licking County side, it's actually the city of Patasko that would be assessed for a portion of this project.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
Franklin County for Wagner Road would be assessed. But aside from private property owners, I believe that covers most of them.
All right, just curious. Okay. That's all I have. Anybody else?
Commissioner Bub, do you have any questions that you need answered or would like to put forward?
No, I appreciated the reminder as to who all potentially would help to pay for such an improvement. Just seems like at this point, there's a lot of vagueness here as to what the real implications would be, and yeah, I look forward to the board's decision as to whether we want to move forward and really gather some more information and start to really see what kind of dollars we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Bub. I think we need more information.
Commissioners, I just want to make sure that today, what is before you is a requirement if you are to move forward and vote to move on to the second hearing. There are 3 elements of findings that you would have to make, and that is that the ditch is necessary, and that it's conducive to the public welfare, and that it is reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed ditch watershed improvements will outweigh its costs. Those are the 3 findings you would have to make to move forward, and I would ask that if any motion is made to move forward, that you make those findings and the clerk puts those as part of the resolution, as well as what I've discussed before, what you stated previously, and that is that if you do move forward to second hearing and a decision is made not to proceed with the improvement, that the residents would not be assessed the cost of the plans and specifications, and that also be made part of the resolution if you move forward to the second hearing.
And Mr. President, before we do move forward, I do believe it is at this time that we would have closing remarks by the engineer's office before we move forward with any type of decision.
Do you guys have closing remarks?
If there are any closing remarks.
Yeah, no, in the past, we have done so, but I think we've addressed this issue enough. Thank you.
You said enough? Is that what you're saying? This is the horse is dead? No need to beat it anymore?
As the prosecutor has noted, if the joint board does move forward with the resolution as set forth in Ohio Revised Code 6131-12 for proceeding with a project survey and design, a final hearing at a future date to determine whether to move forward with the proposed plans for construction of the improvement presented by the engineer's office. So there are 2 resolutions before you, Commissioners. one that affirms the actions to move forward with the schedule of assessments, project survey, and design, and one that dismisses the petition. You may amend either resolution based on evidence presented or refer to the prosecuting attorney's office for assistance. Does the board wish to have a motion to approve to move forward with the schedule of assessments, project survey, and design, or dismiss the petition?
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'll offer a motion that based on initial information, it would appear that some improvements are necessary, that the coal ditch watershed improvements would be conducive to public welfare, and that it's reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements could outweigh the costs. I would offer the resolution ordering the Franklin County engineer to prepare reports, plans, and schedules for the improvements of the coal ditch watershed, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, and the city of Pataskala and Licking County, and move the process forward to gather some additional information so that we can really consider whether we want to move forward with this.
Second.
So it has been moved and seconded, and before I do call the roll, I want to check with the prosecutor's office. I do need to read the resolution in its entirety. Thank you. So I will proceed with that first, but it has been moved by Commissioner Bubb and seconded by Commissioner Crawley. So resolution ordering the Franklin County engineer to prepare reports, plans, and schedules for the improvement of the coal ditch watershed, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, and City of Pataskala, Licking County, Ohio. Whereas a joint county ditch petition for the coal ditch watershed was filed with the clerk of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners on May 24th, 2023, which was signed by the Jefferson Township Board of Trustees and Julie Doctor, and was later amended on October 16th, 2023 by Jack Martin. And whereas the Franklin County Board of Commissioners and the Licking County Board of Commissioners came together as a joint Board of Commissioners, known as the Joint Board, to conduct a viewing of said coal ditch watershed on September 18th, 2023. And whereas on October 24th, 2023, the Joint Board opened the first hearing and upon request of counsel for several landowners, continued the hearing to December 5th, 2023 at 11 a.m. And whereas the Joint Board conducted the hearing on December 5th, 2023, and received and reviewed the written report of Franklin County engineer, as well as exhibits introduced into the record during the hearing, and heard testimony from individuals who testified at the hearing. And whereas preliminary investigation and cost assessments were prepared for the improvement of drainage infrastructure in the coal ditch watershed. Now therefore be it resolved by the Joint Board of Franklin County Commissioners and Licking County, Ohio, in Section 1, that the first hearing held on December 5th, 2023 for the coal ditch watershed petition has been completed. That the Joint Board, upon the consideration of the report of the Franklin County engineer, exhibits introduced into the record during the hearing, as well as the testimony from individuals who testified at the hearing, all as transcribed by a stenographer present at the hearing, hereby makes the following findings. A, that the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements are necessary, and B, that the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements are conducive to the public welfare, and C, that it is reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed coal ditch watershed improvements will outweigh its cost. Also, that based on the findings above, that the Franklin County engineers prepared reports, plans, and schedules for the said improvements of the coal ditch watershed. That the said cost estimates shall include the initial maintenance assessment covering the full length of the coal ditch watershed. That the Franklin County engineers to submit plans, estimates, and schedules on or before October 31st, 2025. That the
August.
Is that what I said? August 31st, 2025. That the exhibits, thank you, Commissioner, that the exhibits admitted during the hearing and the transcript prepared by the stenographer are part of the record herein. And that if the notice to proceed fails at the second hearing, the residents shall not be assessed the cost of the plans and specifications. So to reiterate, Commissioner Bubb did move for this and Commissioner Crawley did second. So moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Bubb.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
I'm a vote, but I just want to make one quick comment.
Okay. Your microphone.
I want to thank the residents for coming today and being patient with us and engaging in this exchange. You know, these are never easy choices and decisions for us to make, I promise you that. And we take it very, very seriously. You know, this topic was on before us today, and there are 10 just like it tomorrow. And there were 10 just like it before we got here. It's why we're a little tardy in getting here. I missed another one while this was going on. Thanks, DCA Bivens, for taking that for me, that meeting, and I'm sure those folks are not happy with me. The point is that I wanted you to know, stayed because this is important, and we wanted to hear you out, and we wanted to make a decision that we think is in the best interest of the masses. In this case, I do want to say that I don't feel like I need to repeat everything that's been said, but I want to encourage you to stick with the process. Continue to be heard, continue to voice your perspective. That's the beauty of democracy, and that there is a process to be had, and this is the beginning of the process, not the end. And so I just wanted to encourage you. With that being said, I'm voting yes on the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner. And finally, Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution ordering the Franklin County engineer to prepare reports, plans, and schedules for the improvement of the Coal Ditch watershed, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, City of Pataskala, and Licking County, Ohio, has been adopted. At this time, if there's no further business before the joint board, this meeting is adjourned.